안녕하십니까. 오늘 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 포럼 사회를 맡은 아나운서 이은정입니다. 반갑습니다. 네, 오늘 행사에 참석해 주신 내빈 여러분들께 진심으로 감사의 말씀 전합니다. 행사 시작에 앞서 진행 순서를 간단히 안내해 드리도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 H2코리아 문제도 회장님께서 환영사를 해주신 후 산업통상자원부 박기영 차관님께서 축사를 해주실 예정입니다. 아울러 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 발족을 위한 공동의향서 체결식이 진행되며 이어 참여기관별 주제발표가 있을 예정입니다. 참여기관 발표는 1부와 2부로 나눠서 진행될 예정이고 마지막으로 H2코리아 문제도 회장님의 폐회사로 끝을 맺겠습니다. 그럼 오늘 행사와 관련해서 몇 가지 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 우선 정부의 코로나 방역 수칙에 따라 행사가 마무리될 때까지 마스크 착용 꼭 부탁드립니다. 저는 행사 진행을 위해 무대에 머무는 동안에만 마스크를 벗고 이외의 시간에는 마스크 착용을 반드시 하겠습니다. 아울러 원활한 행사 진행을 위해 가지고 계신 휴대전화는 무음이나 진동으로 전환해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 또 알람 설정이 혹시 설정되어 있는지 확인해 주시고 해제해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 또한 행사가 끝난 후에는 가지고 계신 리시버를 리시버 대여 장소로 반납 부탁드리겠습니다. 그럼 지금부터 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 포럼을 시작하겠습니다. 네, 먼저 H2코리아 문제도 회장님의 환영사가 있겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
네, 기빈 여러분 안녕하십니까? 수소융합 얼라이언스 회장 문제도입니다. 국제사회가 탄소 중립을 선언하며 중대한 역사적 전환점에 서 있는 시기에 글로벌 수소경제 동향을 이해하고 민간 협력 확대를 위한 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 포럼을 개최하게 된 것을 매우 뜻깊게 생각합니다. 특히 오늘 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 발족을 위한 의향식 체결식을 성황리에 개최할 수 있도록 동참해 주신 각국 협회에 감사드립니다. 바쁘신 와중에도 축사를 보내주신 산업부 박기영 차관님을 비롯한 내외 기빈 여러분을 환영합니다. 오늘 주요국 대표들께서 자국의 수소경제 이행 전략 및 산업 동향을 발표하는데 오늘 참석하신 분들이 수소경제의 세계적 동향을 이해하는 좋은 자리가 되기를 바랍니다. 내외 기빈 여러분, 현재 세계는 환경오염과 그로 인한 이상기후, 신종 감염병이 인류를 위협하는 최대 위기를 맞고 있습니다. 기후위기 대응이라는 과제를 근본적으로 해결하기 위해 빠른 시일 내에 온실가스 감축하고 전 산업군에서 탄소 중립을 실현해야 하는 사명을 안고 있습니다. 지속가능한 지구와 인류의 미래에 대한 고민과 해결 방안을 마련하는 중요한 시기에 맞춰 국제사회는 기후위기 대응을 위한 방안을 내용으로 IPCC 제48차 총회에서 지구온난화 1.5도 특별보고서를 채택하였으며 많은 나라가 탄소 중립을 선언하는 등 이를 해결하기 위한 각고의 노력을 기울이고 있습니다. 한국 또한 지난해 12월 2050 탄소 중립을 선언하며 산업과 경제, 사회 모든 영역에서 탄소 중립을 실현하기 위한 저탄소 산업 생태계 조성에 정책 역량을 집중하는 한편 국제사회와의 공조도 강화해 나가고 있습니다. 탄소 중립의 실현을 위해서는 친환경 에너지로의 전환이 필요하며 핵심 솔루션으로서 수소산업 생태계 구축이 필수적입니다. 수소는 재생에너지 중심의 에너지 시스템으로의 전환을 가속화하며 에너지 자원의 지역적인 편중 및 자원 고갈을 동시에 해결할 수 있는 미래 에너지원이기 때문입니다. 내외 기빈 여러분, 글로벌 주요 국가들은 기후변화 문제의 대응을 위해서 단일 국가의 노력만으로는 해결할 수 없음을 인식하고 수소산업 전 밸류 체인에 걸쳐서 민간 차원의 다양한 국제협력 활동을 이어오고 있습니다. 그 결과 정부와 주요 기업인 차원의 협력이 가시화되고 있으며 중소 중견기업의 육성을 통한 글로벌 수소경제 활성화 및 조기 달성을 위한 노력이 전 세계적으로 확산될 필요가 있습니다. 이를 위해 신기술의 사업화와 규모 경제 실현이 당면한 과제입니다. 또한 신산업 분야에 대한 규제, 표준 등 국제적으로 통용되는 기준 마련 및 초기 단계 수소 산업에 정부와 기업의 적극적인 투자와 정보 교류를 통한 기반 마련이 필요한 상황입니다. 이에 국경을 넘는 네트워크를 구축하고 국가별 지리적 이점, 기술적 강점 등을 활용하여 협력 수요를 발굴하고 장기적으로 이를 발전시켜 효율적으로 글로벌 수소 경제 활성화를 지원할 교류회장이 절실합니다. 대한민국 H2코리아는 수소 산업을 선도하는 주요국의 대표적인 민간 협회 단체와 연합체를 구성하여 국제 수소 산업 진흥을 위하여 함께 고민하고 해법을 찾아 나가겠습니다. 오늘 설립을 결의한 국제 수소산업협회 얼라이언스는 H2코리아가 사무국 역할을 수행하여 정관 제정 등 절차를 빠른 시일 내에 마무리하고 내년에 정식으로 출범할 예정입니다. 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스는 정부와 민간의 견고한 파트너십을 구축을 지원하고 더 나아가 민간 차원의 수소 협력을 위한 플랫폼을 마련할 것입니다. 각국의 산업 연간 소통을 촉진하고 정책과 베스트 프랙티스를 공유하여 기술, 인력, 비즈니스 등 수소산업 전반의 협력 시너지를 창출하는 입체적인 협력 프로그램을 만들어 갈 것입니다. 다시 한번 오늘 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 포럼에 참석해 주신 여러분께 감사드리며 국제수소산업협회를 통해 민간 산업 협력을 강화하고 글로벌 수소 경제 조기 실현에 앞장서 나가겠습니다. 대단히 감사합니다.
네, 문제도 회장님의 환영사 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 오늘 행사를 빛내주시기 위해 박기영 차관님께서 축사를 해주시겠습니다. 코로나19 상황으로 인해서 부득이하게 영상으로 대신하게 된 점 양해 부탁드립니다.
안녕하십니까. 산업통상부 차관 박기영입니다. 제1회 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 포럼의 개최를 진심으로 축하합니다. 오늘 포럼의 개최를 위해 노력해 주신 수소융합 얼라이언스 문제도 회장님을 비롯한 관계자 여러분들께도 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 여러분, 최근 미국에서 기록적인 폭염이 발생하고 유럽에서는 100년 만에 집중호우가 일어나는 등 기후변화 문제는 우리에게 보다 가까운 현실로 다가오고 있습니다. 이에 세계 각국은 탄소 중립을 선언하였고 한국도 작년에 2050년 탄소 중립 목표를 발표하고 최근 국가 온실가스 감축 목표 상향을 추진하며 기후변화 대응을 위한 국제적 공조에 동참하고 있습니다. 탄소 중립 목표 달성을 위해서는 재생에너지 보급과 함께 탄소 기반의 에너지 시스템을 수소 등 무탄소 에너지 기반으로 전환하는 것이 매우 중요합니다. 특히 수소는 자동차, 선박의 연료로 쓰이며 전기를 만들고 산업에도 사용되는 중요한 에너지원입니다. 더불어 수소는 운송 저장이 용이하여 청정 에너지의 국가 간 거래에 있어 에너지 캐리어로서 핵심적인 역할을 할 것입니다. 하지만 수소의 국가 간 거래를 수행하기 위해서는 수소 교역을 위한 규칙 제정, 청정 수소 인증제 등 국제적으로 해결해야 할 많은 과제들이 있습니다. 이러한 측면에서 수소에 대한 국제 협력 방안을 논의하는 이 자리가 깊은 의미를 가지고 있다고 할 수 있습니다. 아울러 오늘 포럼은 각국의 민간 수소협회들이 함께 모인 첫 자리입니다. 수소에 관한 국제협력에 있어 정부 간의 협력도 중요하지만 수소의 생산과 도입 과정에서의 실제 플레이어가 될 민간 기업 간의 국제 교류 또한 중요합니다. 오늘 이 자리에 있는 수소협회들은 수소 민간 기업들을 대표하고 있는 기관으로서 각국 기업들의 수요를 파악하여 실질적인 국제협력 의제로 도출할 수 있는 능력이 있습니다. 이에 더해 협회는 정부와 기업의 정보를 모두 접할 수 있고 두 주체의 입장을 동시에 대변할 수 있기에 국제적인 소통에서 매우 효율적인 플랫폼이 될 것입니다. 수소 분야에서 해결해야 할 많은 의제들이 국제수소산업협회라는 플랫폼의 형성을 통해 효율적으로 해결될 수 있기를 기대합니다. 여러분, 협회 간의 국제 얼라이언스 설립은 우리에게 새로운 시도입니다. 국제수소산업협회가 국제수소경제를 대표하는 기구가 되어 오늘의 시도를 성공으로 이끌 수 있기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
네, 차관님 축사 감사합니다. 이어서 총 13개 국가 수소산업협회 간 글로벌 민간 협의체인 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스의 설립을 위한 의향서 체결식을 갖겠습니다. 본 의향서는 전 세계 기후 위기로 인한 글로벌 수소 경제 이행이 점차 심화됨에 따라 각국 수소산업협회와 연합체를 구성해 이행할 국제 협력 활동에 대한 내용을 담고 있습니다. 이번 의향서를 바탕으로 1년간의 발족 준비 기간을 가진 후 공식 출범할 GHIAA는 세계 각국 내 수소산업 관련 협단체 협의체로 글로벌 수소 시장 및 산업 활성화를 위해 다양한 협력 활동을 전개할 것입니다. 이를 통해 본 협의체는 글로벌 수소 경제 조기 실현을 견인하고 민간의 글로벌 협력을 촉진하며 국제적 협약의 구성 과정에서 민관 모두에게 최선의 결과가 도출될 수 있도록 의견을 개진할 예정입니다. 그럼 서명에 앞서 본 의향서 체결에 참여해 주신 각국 수소협회를 소개해 드리겠습니다. 한국의 수소융합 얼라이언스, 하이드로젠 유럽, 미국 연료전지 및 수소에너지협회, 캐나다 수소 및 연료전지협회, 호주 수소위원회, 싱가포르 수소 및 연료전지협회, 영국 수소 및 연료전지협회, 스페인 수소협회, 중국 국제수소연료전지협회, 네덜란드 수소 및 연료전지협회, 노르웨이 수소포럼, 프랑스 수소 및 연료전지협회, 칠레 수소협회, 이상 13개 국가의 수소협회가 참여해 주셨습니다. 독일 수소연료전지협회는 이번 의향서 체결에는 함께하지 못했으나 향후 GHIAA 공식 발족 과정에 함께할 예정입니다. 참고 부탁드립니다. 그럼 의향서 서명을 위해 H2 코리아 문제도 회장님께서는 무대로 올라와 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 각 협회 대표자 의향서 서명은 코로나 상황으로 인해 영상으로 대체하게 된 점 양해 부탁드립니다. 각 협회 대표자 서명 영상 시작과 함께 H2 코리아 문제도 회장님께서 의향서에 서명해 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 여러분 힘찬 박수로 축하해 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 세계 각국 협회 대표자분들께서도 서명해 주시고 계십니다. 네, 다시 한번 축하드립니다. 네, 각국에서 영상으로 함께 참여해 주시고 계십니다. 네, 잠시 장례를 정리하는 동안 잠시만 기다려 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 이어서 기념사진 촬영이 있겠습니다. 네, 세계 각국 협회 대표자분들과도 이렇게 영상으로나마 함께할 수 있어서 참 기쁩니다. 이로써 국제 수소산업협회 얼라이언스의 공식 출범을 위한 의향서가 체결되었음을 선언합니다. 내빈 여러분, 큰 박수로 성원해 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 잠시 후 기관별 주제 발표 세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 그럼 지금부터 발표 세션 1부를 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 1부에서는 한국, 유럽, 미국, 캐나다, 호주, 프랑스, 싱가포르 수소 및 연료전지 협회의 발표가 있겠습니다. 발표는 기관당 10분이며 주제는 국가 수소 전략 및 산업 동향 등과 관련된 자유 주제입니다. 각 국가별 발표는 코로나 상황과 시차로 인해 영상으로 대체하게 된 점 다시 한번 양해 말씀드립니다. 먼저 H2코리아 문제도 회장님의 발표가 있겠습니다. 문제도 회장님, 단상으로 자리 부탁드립니다.
네, 안녕하십니까. H2코리아 회장 문제도입니다. 국가 탄소 중립이 미래 인류 생존을 위한 글로벌 신 패러다임으로 자리 잡고 있는 가운데 최근 노르웨이 성급의 2050 에너지 전환 전망 보고서에 따르면 모든 전기 생산을 신재생 에너지로 전환해도 2050년 탄소 중립 달성이 역부족일 수 있다는 우려 섞인 전망이 나와 있습니다. 이렇듯 우리는 엄중한 환경 문제가 대두되는 시점에 서 있습니다. 이를 어떻게 극복하느냐는 우리 모두의 숙제이며 온 지구가 우리에게 화두로 제시하고 있습니다. 우리는 이의 극복을 위해서 지금 계획보다 빠른 수소 경제로의 전환과 수소 에너지 이용의 확대를 통해서 지구 온난화 극복에 수소의 역할을 높일 필요가 있습니다. 희망적인 것은 많은 국가와 기업들이 이를 극복하는 정책과 투자를 확대하고 있습니다. 한국 정부와 대표 기업들도 도전적인 목표를 제시하며 수소산업 육성에 팔을 걷어붙이고 있습니다. 저는 오늘 이 자리에서 한국이 수소경제와 탄소 중립을 달성하기 위해서 어떤 노력을 기울이고 있고 이러한 노력의 성과가 어떻게 과시화되고 있는지를 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 H2코리아 소개를 드리겠습니다. H2코리아는 한국의 수소산업 진흥을 위해서 민간과 정부 간 소통의 가교 역할을 하기 위해서 2017년 설립되었습니다. 그리고 한국은 세계 최초로 수소법을 제정하였으며 작년 7월 수소진흥 전담기관으로 H2코리아를 지정하고 한국 산업 육성을 대표하는 기관이 되었습니다. 핵심적인 역할로는 정부 정책 수립 지원, 수소 밸류 체인별 인프라 구축 지원, 기술 개발 촉진, 국내의 수소 사업 협력 모델을 개발하고 국제 협력을 강화하고 수소 시장 진출 기업에 대한 지원을 수행하고 있습니다. 이번 슬라이드는 H2코리아와 함께하는 회원사를 보여주고 있습니다. 현재 H2코리아 회원사 구성은 국내의 기업이 중심이 되고 정부, 지자체, 공기업, 연구기관, 협회 등 120여 개의 기관이 협의체로 참여하고 있습니다. 국제사회는 기후위기 대응이라는 과제 추진을 위해서 주요국은 탄소 중립을 선언하고 이를 실현하기 위한 대안으로 온실가스 감축 목표와 대책을 수립하며 이를 달성하기 위한 나름의 전략을 세우고 있습니다. 작년 10월 한국도 탄소 중립을 국가 비전의 하나로 내걸며 이를 달성하기 위한 10대 핵심 기술을 선정하고 기후 대응과 함께 새로운 성장 동력과 일자리 창출의 기회를 잡기 위한 노력을 기울이고 있습니다. 지난 5월 말에 대한민국 서울에서 개최된 제2의 P4G 정상회담에서 세계 각국의 지도자들은 포용적인 녹색 회복을 통한 탄소 중립 비전의 실현을 통해 기후변화에 대한 대응을 적극 강조하며 다시금 수소의 중요성을 확인한 바 있습니다. 서울선언문 제9항 2조에 따르면 탄소 감축이 어려운 분야에서 청정수소 사용을 촉진할 것임을 밝히고 있으며 이를 통해서 글로벌 수소 경제로의 전환을 위한 높은 이행 의지를 확인할 수 있었습니다. 다음으로 한국의 수소 경제 이행 과정을 살펴보겠습니다. 2019년 1월 한국 정부는 중장기적인 한국 수소 경제 로드맵을 발표하며 수소 분야 세계 선도 국가로 도약하겠다는 비전을 제시한 바 있습니다. 그리고 그해 수소 경제 표준화 전략을 수립하였으며 같은 해 10월에는 수소 기술 개발 로드맵을 만들어 중장기 기술 개발 방향을 설정하였고 12월에는 수소 안전 로드맵을 만들어 수소 산업의 전주기 안전관리 체계를 확립하였습니다. 작년 2월에 국회에서 세계 최초로 수소경제법이 제정되어 수소 산업 및 생태계 조성을 위한 법적 근거를 마련하였으며 올 2월부터 수소법이 시행되고 있습니다. 그리고 같은 해 7월 국무총리를 위원장으로 한 수소경제의 컨트롤 타워인 수소경제위원회가 발족하였으며 수소산업의 진흥, 안전, 유통에 대해서 정부를 지원하는 전담기관도 함께 지정되었습니다. 같은 해 12월에 대한민국의 문재인 대통령께서는 우리 일상으로 다가올 기후위기에 대처하기 위해서 2050 탄소 중립 비전을 선언하신 바 있고 이에 대한 후속 조치로 다양한 정책을 추진 중에 있습니다. 한국의 수소경제 로드맵을 간단히 살펴보겠습니다. 한국 정부는 2040년까지 수소경제 진흥을 위해서 3단계로 나누어 단계별 수소산업 전 주기의 발전 전략과 목표를 제시하였습니다. 로드맵에 따라서 한국은 2018년부터 2022년까지 수소경제 준비기를 가지고 2030년까지는 확산기를 거쳐 2040년에는 선도국으로 도약한다는 내용입니다. 한국 수소경제 로드맵에서 제시된 수소경제 미래를 살펴보면 수소차는 2018년에 약 1,800대가 생산 보급되었으며 현재는 2만 대, 2030년에는 85만 대까지 보급될 것으로 예측하고 있습니다. 수소 충전소는 14기가 2018년에 운영되었으며 금년 말까지 180기 구축을 목표로 하고 있습니다. 2040년이 되면 1,200개가 건설될 예정입니다. 또한 2018년도에 307메가와트 규모의 연료전지 발전소가 구축되었으며 2040년이 되면 약 15기가와트 규모로 확대될 것입니다. 이 비율로 필요한 수소 공급을 계산하면 현재 약 13만 톤 정도가 소요되지만 2030년에 194만 톤, 2040년까지 약 530만 톤의 수소가 필요할 것으로 예측됩니다. 이에 따라 한국 정부는 향후 국내 생산에서 부족한 수소를 해외에서 도입하는 방안을 찾고자 전략을 마련 중에 있습니다. 이를 위해서 H2코리아 주관으로 올해 말까지 해외 수소 도입 타당성 조사를 진행 중입니다. 이 결과는 정부 정책 수립과 기업들의 비즈니스 모델을 찾는 데 가이드 역할을 할 것입니다. 이어서 수소법의 주요 내용에 대해서 말씀드리겠습니다. 수소법에는 전문기업의 육성과 특화단지 조성 등 수소경제 육성 및 지원을 위한 법적 기반을 마련하고 있습니다. 그리고 수전해 등 저압 수소 시설 관련 안전관리 규정의 신설을 통해서 안전관리를 보다 체계화하였습니다. 세계 최초로 수소법 제정을 통해 수소경제 선도자로서 위치를 공고히 하게 되었고 정부 정책의 일관성과 지속성을 확보하게 되었다고 생각합니다. 지난해 7월 수소경제위원회에서 수소산업진흥전담기관으로 H2코리아가 지정되었으며 유통전담기관은 한국가스공사, 안전전담기관은 한국가스안전공사가 선정되어 정부와 민간의 가교 역할을 수행하고 있습니다. 다음으로 한국의 수소경제의 가시적인 성과에 대해서 살펴보겠습니다. 금년 7월을 기준으로 수소차는 승용차 15,660대와 버스 106대가 보급되었으며 대한민국 수도인 서울에서 시범사업으로 택시가 20대가 운영되고 있습니다. 또 같은 기간 수소 충전소는 전국에 110기가 건설되어 운영 중입니다. 현재 75개소에서 674메가와트의 발전용 연료전지가 설치되어 전기를 생산 중이며 7.1메가와트의 건물용 비상발전용 연료전지가 구축되어 운영되고 있습니다. 한국은 국내 수소차 보급 확대와 더불어 전국 수소 충전 기반 시설망 구축 계획을 세우고 있으며 작년 10월에 수소 충전소 배치 전략을 발표했습니다. 수소 충전소의 운영과 충전 방식 그리고 수소 이송 방식을 목적에 따라 고압, 액상, 액체 등 다각도로 검토 중입니다. 또한 수소 충전소 확대 전략으로 경제성, 확장성, 지역 특성을 고려하여 충전 인프라를 전국적으로 구축해 나갈 예정입니다. 여기서 보시는 바와 같이 한국은 지역별로 수소 시범도시, 수소 생산 클러스터, R&D 특화도시, 수소모빌리티 클러스터 등 다양한 수소산업 관련 특화 사업들을 추진 중에 있습니다. 앞으로 더 많은 사업들이 생겨나 2030년이 되면 가시적인 수소사회의 모습을 볼 수 있을 것으로 기대합니다. 그러나 수소사회로의 진입을 위해서는 글로벌 차원의 협력이 무엇보다 중요합니다. 각 국가들이 가지고 있는 장점을 공유하고 부족한 기술 등을 서로 보완해야 수소 시장의 성장과 글로벌 수소 경제의 실현이 가능하기 때문입니다. 이에 민간 중심의 산업 협력 강화를 통한 수소 경제 이행과 수소 산업 확대를 위해서 저는 오늘 13개국의 수소 산업협회와 긴밀한 협력을 통해서 GHIAA 발족 공동의향서를 체결하였습니다. 앞으로 글로벌 수소산업협회 얼라이언스가 국제 수소 협력을 위한 플랫폼 역할을 할 수 있도록 H2코리아는 적극적인 지원과 노력을 다할 것입니다. 경청해 주셔서 대단히 감사합니다.
네, 문재도 회장님 발표 잘 들었습니다. 네, 다음으로 하이드로젠 유럽 요르고 차치마르카키스 대표의 발표가 있겠습니다.
Chatzimarkakis, and I represent Hydrogen Europe in a way that we tried the last years to build up, indeed, a hydrogen momentum in Europe. And I have to say, it worked. Like in other geographies, it worked quite well in Europe. Now is the time to let hydrogen and the hydrogen economy and all the relevant technologies in the whole value chain really flourish. It would not happen in one geography only. Hydrogen can only contribute to the mitigation of climate effects, of extreme weather effects due to climate change, if we do it on a global scale. We need definitely a cooperation around this globe. And we believe at Hydrogen Europe that this is the best way to tackle the so-called Anthropocene. So the era where the impact of humans on the climate, on our planet, has reached a level with a lot of tipping points that might be irreversible. This is why we need to be fast. And we only can be fast if we bring together the forces of the different geographies in hydrogen. And they are different. There are some advantages that we find already in Korea, in Japan, in China, being applied there. Micro CHP, for instance, so the use of stationary fuel cells for heating and for buildings, quite advanced in some Asian geographies. Also, the question of mobility. But there are other applications like the combination of renewable energy sources with hydrogen and the usage in different sectors, which are quite advanced already in Europe. We need to bring all this together. We did it when it comes to norms and standards all over the years, and we need to do it now by accelerating the upscale of the hydrogen economy. We need, for instance, a certification scheme for the origin of hydrogen. We can go ahead in some geographies, but in the end, we need to use it all together. This is why we totally agree with the approach to really cooperate as associations and to really try to use this momentum to step into a new era, into a new stage of the use of hydrogen out of the science fiction corner into a real world. Hydrogen is the new oil, is the new coal. It's also the new natural gas. But in order to get there, and in order also to become a commodity, and not only hydrogen, but also the derivatives, we should really, really hold our hands, not only sign this nice agreement, which is an important basis, but to come together very regularly in order to get this done. We as Europeans and we as Hydrogen Europe support this approach. We will do our utmost to cooperate with you guys around the globe in order to propel hydrogen as an everyday commodity on this earth. Thanks very much indeed, and all the best to this good cooperation for all of us in the future.
네, 요르고 차츠마르카키스 대표의 발표 잘 들어봤습니다. 다음은 미국 연료전지 및 수소에너지협회 모리비 마코위츠 대표의 발표를 듣도록 하겠습니다.
Hello, I'm Morry Markowitz, and I'm president of the Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Energy Association in the United States. We are headquartered in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. I want to first take this opportunity to thank the Hydrogen Conversions Alliance of Korea, H2 Korea, for creating this new and exciting organization that brings together all the leading national trade associations in the hydrogen and fuel cell technology universe with the effort to work together for a better world. Now, let me tell you a little bit about FCHEA. Next slide, please. We are the largest trade association in the United States, and actually the longest serving organization in the United States, representing the fuel cell technology and hydrogen energy industry here in Washington, D.C. Now, we, as our primary mission, are striving to support and provide an industry voice to key regulators and policymakers on the federal level and on the regional and state level. Our work involves education and advocacy to help teach those who make decisions the environmental and economic benefits of fuel cell technology and hydrogen energy. Next slide. Our membership represents the full spectrum of our industry. Automotive OEMs, industrial gas suppliers, material handling, stationary energy suppliers, in addition to suppliers to the industry and various other key players who we are working together as one group to try to move forward a hydrogen economy, not only in the United States, but globally. Next slide. Now, I thought I would briefly discuss with you some of the exciting new activity that's taking place here in the United States on the federal level. As you know, we have a new administration, new president, and they have embraced hydrogen as being part of the solution in addressing climate change, environmental challenges, and also our energy solution. The most recent budget proposal had a dramatic increase in funding for the Department of Energy. That funding is supported by similar requests in our House of Representatives and in our Senate. As an example, they have increased funding to over $200 million for the budget for the DOE's Hydrogen Fuel Cell Technology Office. To put that in perspective, that's a $50 million increase over the last budget. In addition to that, $9.5 billion has been included in the Senate bipartisan infrastructure bill. Of that, $8 billion will be used for the creation of hydrogen hubs and $1 billion for electrolyzer, RD&D, and $500 million to help promote clean hydrogen manufacturing. The House and the Senate have tax efforts which will be included, hopefully, to support the development of hydrogen, energy, and fuel cell technology. These incentives are one of the more important ways of getting the various elements of hydrogen production, hydrogen products out into the marketplace. Next slide, please. In addition, our Secretary of Energy, Granholm, just recently announced the very first of the Department of Energy's Earth shots, and that was for hydrogen, whose goal in 1 decade is to reduce the cost of hydrogen per kilogram to $1. This is how important hydrogen has been elevated on the menu of items being promoted by this administration. Next slide. Last year, we launched the US Roadmap, which provides a plan that covers our ideas from 2030 and then again to 2050 of the future of what hydrogen can bring to the US economy. Next slide, please. As you can see, we see that by 2050, hydrogen will play a significant role in our US economy. One of the benefits we have is that wherever and however you derive hydrogen, it will be domestically produced, whether by low carbon, no carbon, and total renewables. All the hydrogen produced will be coming from the US, which leads to strengthening the economy. And we anticipate by 2050 that $750 billion in revenue will be generated. There have been others that have expected it to grow to $1 trillion plus. And equally important is that it will generate clean jobs of a total of 3.4 million people, while reducing our carbon dioxide by 60% and our NOx by 36%. Next slide, please. However, as we like to say, this will not happen by autopilot. It's going to take a great deal of work by those here and all of you in our global community. We need to first start with setting a North Star. Then we need to kickstart markets with appropriate incentives and support. And third, we need to make systematic changes to pave the way for a hydrogen economy. So, what is our North Star? Next slide, please. It's for governments to set dependable technology-neutral decarbonization goals. Without this, the incentives to help the private sector and the public sector move in the same direction will be problematic. there needs to be agreement that we need to all agree on setting dependable decarbonization goals. Next slide. Then, how do we go about doing this? Well, as we know, the most important thing is that new transformational technology has to eventually be competitive in cost with that of incumbent technology. And at this time, you need to create public incentives to bridge those barriers until we become competitive. You need to support the necessary infrastructure development, whether it is through transmission, new renewable sources of production, infrastructure for refueling, etc. And then we have to recognize that this is a partial solution to many, many sectors, whether it is to make renewables better, more reliable, more resilient, by providing storage for renewable electricity, by making transportation greener, whether it's light, medium, or heavy duty, whether it's by private, individual, or fleet applications. Hydrogen plays a role in the zero emission world. This is not, for instance, in transportation, not a zero-sum game. Over the past 90 years, we have had two technologies that are supplied by two distinct infrastructures that are not compatible, but they complement each other. That's gasoline and diesel. And so we look at our transportation world, which consumes so much carbon or emits so much carbon, that this needs to be done with batteries and with fuel cells. Also, we also have to promote the idea through government procurement. Government buys large quantities of items, and they can help by increasing volume to be able to lower costs for the private sector also. Next slide. And finally, when we talk about making systematic changes, we have to make sure that we build the appropriate foundation by supporting research and development to make sure that we harmonize technical codes and safety standards so that one economic bloc does not have different requirements than the others, and we cannot interchange our products, our knowledge, etc. We need to make sure that we train the next generation of workers who will be clean energy workers, clean technology workers. And we have to make sure that when we look at energy sector regulations, that they account for this new transformational capability that will be part of the solution that we all look for globally for a cleaner environment while maintaining economic and employment viability. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and I look forward to seeing the great progress all of you make in moving all of us across the goal line. Thank you very much.
네, 모리비 마코위츠의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 캐나다 수소 및 연료전지 협회 마크 커비 대표의 발표가 이어지겠습니다.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Mark Kirby, and I'm the President and CEO of the Canadian Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association. And I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to meet here today on the Alliance Forum. And I'd like to express how proud and excited I am to be able to represent the Canadian Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association and our member companies as we join the Global Hydrogen Industrial Association Alliance, an important initiative that will help to spur the adoption of hydrogen and hydrogen energy around the world. We're delighted to be here, and I would like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the hydrogen landscape in Canada. First off, I'd like to talk about our association. We're a nonprofit And we're proud to represent over 100 companies in Canada that are are part of our leading hydrogen and fuel cell cluster here in Canada. We have major companies, major global companies, we have Canadian-based companies, we have tech startups, we have a wide range of companies that are united in their drive to commercialize hydrogen energy in our world so that we can help meet our challenges in climate change. So a little bit about Canada's hydrogen landscape. An overview. In Canada, we've recognized that hydrogen is both essential and it's an opportunity. We've also recognized that Canada has strengths in hydrogen and in fuel cells. We've, as a result, put in place a strategy which provides a framework for how we're going to move forward in hydrogen. Backing that is policy and funding, which is significant and technology neutral. And we've also developed an implementation plan with industry engagement to work out how we are going to get hydrogen energy applications deployed across our country. It's leading to significant projects with more in development. And we're actively pursuing international engagement because we recognize that is key. So why is hydrogen both essential and an opportunity? Why is there this global groundswell of interest? Well, I think we all recognize that hydrogen is part of a net zero future. It's needed for long haul transportation, decarbonizing it in trucks, trains, and ships. It's needed for heavy industry. It's needed for building heat, needed for energy storage. That means that it becomes essential to achieve net zero, and it supports the build out of other clean biofuels, chemicals, and power. It's also an economic opportunity. It's a Canadian strength, and low cost, clean hydrogen stimulates investment. How big an economic opportunity? Well, the Hydrogen Council recently announced that there are now more than $500 billion of announced hydrogen projects through 2030. That's up to 3% of total global energy projects through that time. And of those, a significant portion, 150 billion, is now becoming what they call mature. That is a very significant opportunity. And in response to that, we recognize that Canada has strengths. We've got over 100 years in electrolyzer technology, 40 years in fuel cells, and we're a leading energy supplier of all sorts, hydro, nuclear, oil and gas, and coal. So this is in our interest to see how we can move forward with hydrogen. Our starting point is strong. We've got projects right across the country. And I won't go into detail about them, but right from British Columbia to the Maritimes, from Ontario to the Northwest Territories, there are projects in production, research, and demonstration that are continue to advance hydrogen energy applications across our country. We are a top 10 hydrogen producer. We have existing 3 merchant plants and more in planning. We have leading clean hydrogen producer, cradle of the PEM fuel cell technology, and we have hubs, a network of hubs that is developing across our country. We have a very strong sector with capabilities in the full value chain of hydrogen and fuel cells. So as a result, we developed the hydrogen strategy for Canada. That strategy has over 32 recommendations organized in 8 pillars ranging from strategic partnerships to international markets, a framework that allows us to move forward and address the challenges and barriers to the adoption of hydrogen. This is backed with significant policy and funding. The hydrogen strategy for Canada works with our revised climate plan. We have policy in that includes such things as a net zero commitment, price on carbon, clean fuel standards, and zero emission vehicle mandates. We have significant funding, $1.5 billion in our clean fuel fund, $7 billion in our industry transformation fund. So there's significant funding from the government to help in stimulating private sector investment to get projects underway. And we're engaged internationally through the Clean Energy Ministerial, International Partnership for Hydrogen in the Economy, and our Global Affairs Department through supporting us in exports and investment. And it's not only the federal level. We also have our provinces engaged and putting in place policy and support. To implement, there's been established a overall strategic steering committee with industry and government, ties to the federal departments, to our provinces, to our Indigenous leaders. And under that steering committee, we've established working groups to tackle those key sectors and to focus in on what's needed. What are the barriers? What are the opportunities? What are the communications needs? What do we need in terms of funding? What do we need in terms of new products? And to try and make sure that we can actually get hydrogen and fuel cell projects underway in each of these sectors. And there'll be more as we move forward. I'm proud to say that the Canadian Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association is leading the urban transit and the hubs working groups, and we're participating in all the others as well. We think this is a very good way, this partnership between industry and government, to try and make sure we can advance hydrogen as quickly as possible. I will say hubs are a key part of our strategy. We've recognized that scale and proximity of hydrogen to the use point leads to reduced cost. That in turn leads to sustainable economics. And then what you wind up with is economic growth and significant GHG reductions. And that's attractive to communities. So the communities are now working to establish hubs in their areas. We've got projects developing now in Vancouver, Edmonton, and Quebec. And we anticipate more, and eventually those forming the backbone for our hydrogen infrastructure across the country. We also know we need clean hydrogen supply, and we're going to need a lot. The hydrogen strategy forecasts that we're going to need over 20 million metric tons per year just for our domestic use, more for export. That's a 10x scale up in our hydrogen capacity. We obviously want to use renewable hydrogen, but we do recognize also that fossil fuel derived hydrogen will be lower cost and can be scaled more quickly. So for example, if it all came from renewable power, just Canada's needs would be 130 gigawatts of renewable power, which is a challenge. We don't want to have scarcity or high cost, because what that'll do is just delay us achieving our GHG emissions reduction targets, and we can't afford that. It'll also disadvantage our industry and consumers. So recognizing that we have different energy availabilities across Canada, as we do around the world, we have renewables, we have biomass, we have nuclear, we have oil and natural gas. All of those can be used to produce low or negative carbon intensity hydrogen. So the goal in Canada is to regulate the outcome, not the pathway. We support clean hydrogen from all energy sources, and in essence, giving customers what they want. But to make sure that it is clean hydrogen and that Canadians can trust and international buyers can trust in that hydrogen, we want to regulate and monitor that carbon intensity, the full life cycle, and have meaningful policy in place to reward low carbon and penalize high carbon production technologies through a price on carbon and our clean fuel standards. This will result in hydrogen being available, clean hydrogen being available at a cost-effective manner. This is leading to projects and activities in Canada. And research and development, we have the BC PEM fuel cell cluster. We have a cluster around electrolyzers and nuclear hydrogen in Ontario. We've got projects for production of clean hydrogen in Alberta, Quebec, and expanding across the country. We've got hubs, including the Alberta Heartland Hydrogen Project hub. We've got multiple blending projects for natural gas, including the first in North America in Markham, Ontario. Biofuel and biochemical production projects are underway. We've got light duty and retail hydrogen fueling station deployments, material handling projects, bus projects, truck projects, freight rail projects, power generation projects. Right across the country, we've got activity underway, and we're happy to share information about those projects. Just a couple of examples. In Alberta, the Heartland Hub, built around a refinery complex. We've got a hydrogen pipeline with a SMR and ATR with CCUS. And the key thing about it is it's producing very low-cost hydrogen. The applications there, it's industrial processing, but it's also attracting newer applications, blending, turbines, heavy-duty trucks, buses, rail, and more. And this is an exciting demonstration of what can be done through a hydrogen hub. In Alberta, in Vancouver, we have the center of the PEM fuel cell cluster, where we have leading fuel cell companies, we have components, we have universities, we have suppliers and support. It's a very strong, probably the leading PEM fuel cell cluster in the world, with an incredible pool of talent developed over 40 years that is developing the world's leading technologies in PEM fuel cells. And these companies are all available for international partnerships. We have large-scale renewable hydrogen projects, technology companies such as Cummins, Hydrogen Optimized, Next Hydrogen, and more. We have projects such as shown here, right across the country. And an example would be the Bécancour expansion of an Air Liquide merchant liquid hydrogen plant. It's a 20-megawatt Cummins PEM electrolyzer, which is the largest in the world. And that came up and is running and now supplying customers throughout North America. Large-scale clean hydrogen from fossil fuels. We have many companies on the technology side and projects. We have the Quest project, is 120,000 tons per year from 3 SMRs with CCUS, about 50% capture rate, and that's operating now in Edmonton. And we have more. We have Air Products has announced a 300,000 ton a year ATR and CCS with 95% capture. Suncor ATCO 300,000 ATR and CCS with 90+% capture. These are major projects. The Quest project's a $1.35 billion project, and the others are similar. It gives us the largest clean hydrogen capacity in the world. Opportunities for collaboration. We have member services that are willing to provide support and technology. We are open for hydrogen exports. There's events we can work together on. And of course, we're open for investment into Canada, in our companies, in our projects, and come in and establish yourself in the North American market with access to the US and other markets through our free trade agreement. So I do encourage you to reach out to Canadian companies, to reach out to the CHFCA, and we'd be happy to talk further. Thanks very much.
네, 마크 커비 대표의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 어느덧 일부 발표 세션의 절반이 지났습니다. 이쯤 되니까 영상으로 시청하시고 또 마스크를 착용하시면서 시청하셔서 조금 몸이 찌뿌듯하실 것 같은데요. 공식적으로 기지개 한번, 스트레칭 한번 하고 가는 시간 갖도록 하겠습니다. 팔도 한번 쭉 당겨주시고요. 목 스트레칭도 가볍게 해주시고 네, 편안한 마음으로 나머지 국가의 발표를 이어서 듣도록 하겠습니다. 중간중간에 물도 드시면서 시청해 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 좋습니다. 네, 다음은 호주 수소위원회 피오나 시몬 대표의 발표를 듣겠습니다.
Hello, I'm Fiona Simon, the CEO of the Australian Hydrogen Council. So the Australian Hydrogen Council, or AHC, is the peak body for the emerging hydrogen industry in Australia. Our objective is to grow the industry to have clean hydrogen as a key part of the energy mix. We have 79 members at the moment, and our members are companies and they're spread across the many sectors, with the main areas being energy, transport, technology, and consulting. And this reflects the true versatility of hydrogen. To set the scene, obviously we know there's a huge interest in hydrogen globally. That's why we're here today. It's driven by nations' decarbonisation agendas. And the governments are reacting. In Australia, we have a huge policy support for hydrogen at the moment. So this image is a reflection of my virtual desk at times, and these are just the reports that have come from government. There's a lot to absorb. The overall policy picture for hydrogen in Australia starts with the Australian National Hydrogen Strategy, or NHS, which was released in November 2019. Then September last year, the Australian government released the first of its low emissions technology statements. And this one addresses the range of technologies to reduce emissions, including hydrogen, and sets out the stretch target of H2 under 2, which is the production of a kilo of clean hydrogen for less than $2 Australian. So the Australian states and territories have also been developing their own approaches to hydrogen. They've all released or they're currently working on strategies or plans that demonstrate their particular priorities. So it's a fantastic environment and everyone's keen and wants to build the industry. And we've seen unprecedented support from governments from both sides of politics. So this slide shows some of the funding announcements for the hydrogen industry in Australia because, of course, we are pre-commercial. The funding's been vital to get many of the projects that we have off the ground. So this information's been taken from a report that's on the website High Resource, HY Resource, which is hosted by our scientific agency, CSIRO, and I'll share a link with you at the end of the presentation. As shown here, we can see the current federal funding is about $920 million Australian. Now that's the money that's been announced. It hasn't necessarily been spent yet. We can add around $325 million from the states and the territories. And since this document was released, the Queensland government's announced that it's going to expand its $500 million Queensland Renewable Energy Fund into a $2 billion Queensland Renewable Energy and Hydrogen Jobs Fund. And the Commonwealth Government has also announced further support for the CSIRO. This is great, and we're really pleased with the announcements. There's really a lot of fantastic opportunities available here. However, there's still a need for more than this to get to scale. This slide shows some of what industry has been doing, including with the funding that's been allocated to date. And I should note, not everyone receives funding, and even those who do have to provide their own significant contribution as well. So this is also based on the material from high resource, and it's just the projects that are more advanced. There is a lot more than this on high resource for much larger projects as well. I won't be going into the detail, but I just wanted to briefly paint a picture. So the green rows here are the hydrogen projects that are operational now. And while I know it's not all about electrolyzers, they are used here as a useful way of plotting the path to scale. And you'll see here that our largest electrolyser is 1.25 megawatts at the recently opened Hydrogen Park, South Australia. Our Australian projects are weighted to gas blending at the moment, which is great because these are long-lived assets and planning is vital. We also have refuelling here, as well as the important HESC project in Victoria. The next range of colours, the next colour grouping, these are the projects that will become operational this year. So we have more refuelling, more gas blending, and the exciting work that company Hazer is doing with methane pyrolysis also becomes operational. At this stage, we're looking at over 2.7 megawatts of electrolyser capacity and a huge jump in production overall. And then a lot happens in 2022. We've got another 9 projects scheduled to come into operation, with important progress in renewable methane, the microgrid in Western Australia, iron ore mine of Fortescue's Christmas Creek Mobility Project, which has 2 700 kilowatt electrolysers, and Arrowsmith's 50 megawatt project. So that's 5 megawatts without Arrowsmith and 55 with. So we're seeing much greater production figures here as well, with again, Christmas Creek, Manila and Arrowsmith as the standouts. And then in 2023, we get into the larger electrolysers, primarily looking at gas blending projects and ammonia. So the 3 with 10 megawatt electrolysers, they're the 3 projects that received funding from our Renewable Energy Agency, that is ARENA, this year when they announced $103 million Australian for the funding round. So that's the industry as it stands. And it's all good news, and we do look forward to further announcements. We are seeing the green shoots. We're on the path to scale. But we do have a way to go, and this is a slide that uses hydrogen production numbers to try to tell that story. So the numbers here are developed the ones at the top by Deloitte for our national hydrogen strategy. The top row shows Deloitte's figures for 2 scenarios. These were the 2 most ambitious ones for hydrogen. So there's a figure of 724 kilotons per annum for one called targeted deployment. And then the more ambitious scenario was called Energy of the Future, and there's close to 1.8 million tonnes a year for that one. And these are including both domestic and export. Now, I just want to be really clear that these are not predictions, they are scenarios. So I've shown 2 columns per scenario for just examples of the possible project mixes for Australia to reach that scenario headline statistic. So it's really just here to illustrate how we might reach the volumes. When we price it out, we do find an expected outcome of a mix where there are more large-scale projects being cheaper than one with a weighting towards smaller projects. So the figures are a little bit flexible, but the difference between the 2 blue targeted deployment columns, so they're just 2 different options of project mixes, is 260% with the cost. The mix with the more larger projects is around $8 billion, and the one with 544 total projects of 10 to 100 megawatt size is close to 21 billion. So just even with this sort of basic view, we can see it's in our interest as an industry to be aiming for the larger projects. The smaller size project here produces 1 kiloton of hydrogen per year. It's equivalent to a 10 megawatt electrolyser if you were using that technology to make green hydrogen. And of course, we don't even yet have a 10 megawatt electrolyser in Australia, but these are coming through in 2023. So we can see from this illustrative case that we need to build up to gigawatts or close to gigawatts size electrolysers and have them operational by 2030. The evolutionary steps here do need to be significant. So how do we get there? Well, obviously, it's a complex ecosystem that we're in, and we're all trying to build it, and it does take everyone. For the Australian Hydrogen Council, we see the policy needs as being the lever that we need to pull. It's the understanding the policy settings that we need to have in place to reduce investment and knowledge gaps and to encourage the market. So we use the framing mechanism of the economic, the regulatory and the social licences to operate. And on this slide, these are shown across the top. The key industry needs are in the lighter green row underneath that, and they involve a number of reasonably predictable means of reducing costs and encouraging investment. Some examples of how the needs can be met are in the next row, the blue row. And you can see a great deal here is about planning, it's about coordination, regulatory change to provide investment certainty. And this is where the industry really needs to communicate its needs to government and for government to then use those policy levers to create the market. So just doing a quick run around some of the pieces here, we can see grant funding is vital. Again, we're pre-commercial. So we're fortunate to have ARENA in Australia, which provides funding to renewables projects. And it's been vital to projects so far. And I think we'll also increasingly see grant funding of different sorts coming from our trading partners so that they can work with Australia to create a regional market and get prices down. Government green loans play an important role, as do tax settings, such as accelerated depreciation and incentives for research and innovation. And regulation is vital. This varies from removing unnecessary barriers, such as legal definitions that don't account for hydrogen when they should, to creating new market mechanisms that can allow the value that hydrogen and renewables bring against the fossil incumbents. Social licence also vital. It's about assisting communities and consumers across multiple markets to feel comfortable and confident about the energy transition and hydrogen's role within it. Importantly for us in Australia, it's also going to be working with communities about renewables and hydrogen projects in their midst. Realising our hydrogen volume scenarios and decarbonisation more broadly will mean huge construction is required for renewable electricity, and there'll be a need for community engagement over these coming decades. The grey boxes here show some of the industry's more immediate priorities for 2021. And again, this includes things like hydrogen certification, so it's a regulatory piece so people know what they're buying, policy settings like standards and targets to drive demand. Hydrogen hubs, the Australian government has announced some funding for hubs, and we look forward to seeing how that unfolds. And then harmonised regulations, fit for purpose training, and proactive and meaningful communications. So I'll finish my presentation with some links to some of the key websites in Australia, and these are really good resources. We have links and further information on our website as well. So I note in particular the first link to High Resource. High Resource has all the announced and current hydrogen industry and research projects in Australia and New Zealand. It also has a lot of policy information on it as well, both for Australia and internationally. So it's a really good one-stop shop for us. So thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here today and to be signing this acknowledgement of our need to collaborate and work together. So thank you very much.
네, 피오나 시몬 대표의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 프랑스 수소 및 연료전지 협회 필립 부키 대표의 발표를 듣도록 하겠습니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Philippe Boucly, the president of the French Association for Hydrogen and Fuel Cells. I'm very pleased to deliver this message to you. France Hydrogène is a French association which brings together all the players which are committed to develop hydrogen in France. In our association, there are large groups, small and medium enterprises, research centers, laboratories, and communities. I mean municipalities, local authorities, and all the regions of France are members of our association. Since September 2020, it means 1 year ago, France has a hydrogen strategy. 3 axes with equal priority between these axes. First, to decarbonize industry and to take the huge quantities which are needed to scale up a competitive French electrolysis industry. Second axis is to develop hydrogen for professional mobility. I mean for buses, for trucks, for refuse trucks, but also for trains, ships, and later on for airplanes. And the third axis is to develop research, development, and innovation within a priority research program. Objective is to develop by 2030 electrolysis capacity of 6.5 gigawatt, and also to create between 50,000 and 150,000 jobs. The financial support from the state is allocated to this strategy, in total 7.2 billion euro, partly within the recovery plan, which was developed and decided after the COVID crisis. And among this 7.2 billion euro, 3.4 are engaged, should be engaged before 2023. How this money will be engaged, will be dedicated through call for projects which are managed by ADEME, the French Agency for Environment and Ecology. Two main call for project, one which is devoted to technological bricks with an amount of 350 million euro, and a second one for developing territorial ecosystem with an amount of 275 million euro. And also support to the strategy will be given through a support mechanism. I mean, to fill the gap between low carbon and or renewable hydrogen, the cost of low carbon and or renewable hydrogen, and the cost of gray hydrogen. At the European level, hydrogen is recognized as a strategic matter and will be recognized as an IPCEI, important project of common European importance. At the French level, 15 projects were already pre-notified to the European Commission, and others will come later. At the European level, the action of France Hydrogen take place within Hydrogen Europe, and also as a member of the Clean Hydrogen Alliance, where we as an association are participating at the industrial application roundtable. As the French association, we are developing expertise within working groups about mobility, about energy systems, about industry usages, and about public affairs, value chain, etc., formation, training, etc., competencies, etc. Basically, we are facing two challenges. One is to scale up. It is of utmost importance to develop technologies and systems by a factor 1,000. For instance, presently in France, we have less than 6 megawatt. Target is 6,500 megawatt by 2030. We have roughly 400 cars. Our target is more than 300,000 cars by 2030. The main barrier is cost. And so it's really needed to develop economy of scale. To do that, we have published yesterday a study which presents our vision of the development of the deployment of hydrogen on the French territory. The aim is to pool usages within some industrial basins, I mean harbors, valleys of Seine, Seine Valley, Rhone Valley, borders with Germany, borders with Belgium, Luxembourg, and also border with Spain. This requires a holistic, in other words, a systemic approach to integrate all the usages, all the projects in the industry field, as well as for mobility. And also to combine with logistic means in order to make the link between the production area where hydrogen is produced and the territories where the hydrogen is used. The second challenge is to contribute to reindustrialization of France. Hydrogen is considered as a strategic value chain. The COVID crisis has clearly shown that technological sovereignty is very important. So the objective is to use our competencies within the hydrogen value chain to develop a competitive industry in France. I told it already, one of our objectives is to contribute to create jobs through manufacturing of products on the French territory and through the development of projects. As a conclusion, I would like to stress that carbon is really our common enemy. So we welcome cooperation. As I told already, we are a member of Hydrogen Europe. We have already contact with hydrogen association in the world. So I consider that we will succeed only and only if we can join forces and use all the means to develop hydrogen in our respective countries and in the world. I thank you for your attention.
네, 필립 부키 대표의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 1부의 마지막으로 싱가포르 수소 및 연료전지협회 노엘 친 대표의 발표가 이어지겠습니다.
A very good day to all. My name is Noel Chin, and I'm currently serving as the president of the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore. It is an honor to be invited to speak on this momentous occasion on the announcement of the formation of the Global Hydrogen Industrial Association Alliance. I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks to the H2 Korea team for organizing this webinar. I would like to start off with a short introduction on how the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore was conceived. We started out as an interest group under the Singapore Fuel Cell community back in 2015. We served as a platform to bring people from diverse interests to share, explore, and collaborate. As the interest gathered pace over the years, our membership also grew. In 2019, we decided to form the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association of Singapore, or HFCAS in short, to support the push for green hydrogen as one of the low-carbon alternative energy for Singapore, and ongoing development and application of hydrogen and fuel cell activities. This also provides us with recognition and credibility in our dealings with local and overseas companies and associations. Under the HFCAS, we'll continue to create opportunities for members to network through various meetings and events. In addition, we'll be focusing on new areas such as promoting and raising awareness, development of standards and best practices, building up capabilities and upgrading of skill sets, coordinating industrial and commercial activities, and working in partnership on national and international events. So what's happening in Singapore's energy landscape? In 2019, the Singapore government made a conscious decision to add a fourth switch to our nation's energy mix, with special focus on decarbonizing the energy sector by exploring low-carbon alternatives such as green hydrogen. A study was commissioned by the government to explore the feasibility of green hydrogen and the various applications by 2050. This was important to HFCAS as it provides a clear direction on the areas that we should be focusing our efforts on. Singapore, like all other countries, who have committed to the Paris Agreement, aims to reduce our carbon emissions by 36% from 2005 levels by 2030. With hydrogen and fuel cell solutions, we believe that we could do more to contribute to this target. In the built environment sector, where the aim is to improve on building energy efficiency, co- or tri-gen fuel cell systems could help to achieve this. In the mobility sector, Singapore is pushing aggressively for zero tailpipe emissions on the road through the electrification of vehicles. Hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles could help contribute to this target with special focus on heavy vehicles. Likewise, for the maritime sector, the focus is on electrification of port vehicles, such as prime movers and fuel cell powered forklifts. Pilot trials in these sectors will provide the opportunity to assess its feasibility, identify and resolve issues before scaling up. As a renewable disadvantaged country, Singapore is unable to generate sufficient green hydrogen and would need to explore imports from other countries rich in renewable energy and keen to export green hydrogen, such as Australia, Norway, and Malaysia. Our aim is to focus our efforts on developing our expertise in areas such as membrane and catalyst R&D. This is where Singapore can make a significant contribution to improve the efficiency of existing hydrogen production and fuel cell technologies. As mentioned in my previous slide, growing our expertise in niche areas will bring Singapore to the forefront. We have companies set up to design and manufacture their own fuel cells, companies who exploit the potential of fuel cells to support their businesses, and those looking to hydrogen as the next in thing in their business plans. For green hydrogen to take off in Singapore, or even in any other country, there must be public acceptance. And the only way to gain this public acceptance is through awareness programs. I'm sure everyone can remember the Hindenburg episode and conclude that hydrogen is dangerous. We need to educate the public and correct this mindset on what is hydrogen and its properties, why is it essential to Singapore in our push to decarbonize the energy sector, what are the various use cases and how it could be used in a safe manner, and eventually live with it, just like what happened with petrol and diesel. A dedicated hydrogen museum open to the public and schools will help to drive this message and enhance the experiential learning. Reaching out to the schools to incorporate hydrogen as part of their sustainability curriculum is one of the key strategies to better prepare our future generation once green hydrogen reaches our shores. To support industry projects, there's a need to develop national standards on the safe use of hydrogen. This will be important as it will look at mitigating measures to address safety concerns by the regulatory authorities. There may be a need to customize existing overseas standards to suit our unique densely populated environment, but most of them could be adopted wholesale. We'll be working with industry partners to drive this initiative. Another area that needs to be addressed is whether we would have a ready workforce with the correct skill sets to deal with green hydrogen and fuel cell applications. There's a need to explore ways to upgrade their knowledge and skill sets through courses designed for both the general users and the professionals, so that there is a ready pool of experts to support hydrogen projects when the time comes. Lastly, HFCAS is run by an enthusiastic group of volunteers committed to help grow the association and to support our members. They have been driving our outreach programs and are working with the relevant authorities to spearhead some of the initiatives mentioned. To date, we have about 300 individual members who represent different parts of the hydrogen value chain. We will continue to create opportunities and value add and to attract new members. On behalf of our EXCO and our members, thank you. And once again, congratulations to the formation of the Global Hydrogen Industrial Association Alliance.
네, 노엘 친 대표의 발표까지 들으셨습니다. 이것으로 오전 행사와 발표 세션 1부를 마치겠습니다. 오전 행사에 참석해 주신 내빈 여러분 및 청중 여러분께 다시 한번 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 발표 세션 2부는 지금부터 약 1시간 반 정도의 휴식 시간을 가진 후에 오후 1시 30분에 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 내빈 여러분들께서는 원활한 행사 진행을 위해서 행사 10분 전까지는 착석해 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 1시 30분에 발표 세션 2부가 시작되고요. 그보다 10분 전인 1시 20분까지는 자리에 착석 부탁드립니다. 좋은 시간 보내고 오십시오. 고맙습니다. 그럼 지금부터 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 포럼 발표 세션 2부를 시작하겠습니다. 오늘 행사와 관련해서 몇 가지 안내사항 말씀드리겠습니다. 우선 정부의 코로나 방역 수칙에 따라 행사가 마무리될 때까지 마스크 착용 꼭 부탁드립니다. 저도 행사 진행을 위해서 무대에 머무는 동안에만 마스크를 벗고 이후의 시간에는 꼭 마스크를 착용하도록 하겠습니다. 아울러 원활한 행사 진행을 위해 가지고 계신 휴대전화는 무음이나 진동 모드로 전환해 주시고 혹시 알람 설정이 해제되어 있는지도 다시 한번 확인 부탁드리겠습니다. 마지막으로 행사가 끝나면 가지고 계신 리시버는 리시버 대여 장소로 반납해 주시기 바랍니다. 네, 발표 세션 2부에서는 영국, 스페인, 중국, 네덜란드, 노르웨이, 칠레, 독일 수소 및 연료전지 협회의 발표가 있겠습니다. 발표는 일부와 동일하게 기관당 10분이며 주제는 국가 수소 전략 및 산업 동향 등과 관련된 자유 주제입니다. 2부의 첫 번째로 영국 수소협회 대표이자 설립자인 셀리아 그레아베스의 발표를 듣도록 하겠습니다.
Hello, I'm Celia Greaves, CEO of the UK Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association. We're delighted to be one of the founding members of the Global Hydrogen Industry Association Alliance and to join you for this launch event. I've been asked to introduce developments in the hydrogen space in the UK and I'm very pleased to be able to share that with you. I'd like to start with an introduction to our association. We are the largest and longest running pan-UK hydrogen and fuel cell trade group within the UK. We have around 80 members covering all aspects of the hydrogen and fuel cell space, right through from hydrogen production of all different types, through handling, distribution and storage, across into the full range of applications, transport, heat, power and beyond, and encompassing both fuel cells and combustion applications. And of course, we then extend across the full value and supply chain as well, through from innovative SMEs, supply chain and components companies, international well-known players in hydrogen aspects, and then into professional services suppliers and beyond. You can see an illustration of our members here. We are a focal point for national and international engagement in the hydrogen and fuel cell space, working with our colleagues at the Department for International Trade and collaborating with a range of international organisations. Our focus is on promoting our members and promoting the hydrogen and fuel cell sector, both within the UK and internationally. And one of our recent activities has been the publication of a series of position papers. We're doing a set of 3 of these papers. The first 2 on blue and green hydrogen have been published, and we'll be publishing our third paper on fuel cells on the 14th of September at a webinar which is open to all. So if you'd like to join us, you can find details on our website at ukhfca.co.uk. We work closely with government to improve the prospects for hydrogen and fuel cells, both informally and formally, through consultations, dialogue, working with parliamentarians and so on. And in terms of promoting our members, we've published a members showcase, which is also available on our website. So if you're interested in engaging with UK companies, you can learn about our members' capabilities, activities, plans and credentials through our members showcase, which is available both as a searchable online resource and also as a downloadable PDF. Regarding international and national collaboration, we are very active in this space, and as I said at the outset, delighted to be involved in this new initiative. On the UK front, we are conveners of the UK Hydrogen Coordination Forum, which brings together 12 leading UK hydrogen groupings. These include both national groupings with hydrogen interests and a range of regional bodies looking to deploy hydrogen and scale up hydrogen across the UK. We are members of Hydrogen Europe and have a range of national and international collaborations in place. And for example, our MOU with the Australian Hydrogen Council. And we've also worked closely with the Hydrogen Council on a number of initiatives over the past months. So, in looking more closely at the UK context, and just to provide some wider background for the development of hydrogen within the UK. The UK is #1 in Europe for the most attractive energy and investment deployment opportunities, and 5th globally. We have more than a dozen large-scale hydrogen projects, either ongoing or in planning. We have wind and solar resources, which are expected to reach over 50% of UK's power production by 2030, which is more than any other member country of the International Energy Agency. So we're very, very active on the renewable energy front, which is obviously key for green hydrogen production. We're the 4th most innovative place in the UK, 4th most innovative place in the world. And because of our extensive coastal resources, we have enough CO2 storage capacity on our continental shelf to fully meet our demands for hundreds of years. And we also have a world-leading gas network with 85% of homes and businesses using natural gas for cooking, heating and hot water. So against that background, the race to zero emissions has already started within the UK. Our government is guided by our Committee on Climate Change, which sets legally binding targets for carbon reduction, the latest of which is a requirement for a 78% reduction in CO2 emissions relative to 1990 by 2035. So it's a huge challenge, and we will need to see transformative change across our energy system to achieve that. The Committee on Climate Change has put hydrogen at the heart of that ambition, and this is now being translated across UK strategy and policy, as you'll see as I take you through this presentation. So, as I just said, hydrogen is now widely recognised as an essential component of a future low carbon economy in the UK, moving towards net zero by 2050. I'll be talking in a little bit more detail about our hydrogen strategy. Suffice to say, if we look ahead to 2050, the strategy looks at levels of up to 460 terawatt hours of hydrogen production, and by 2050, with demand growing out into the 2030s and beyond across industry, power, heat and transport. And I think another important component for us here in the UK is the opportunity for clean growth. So up to 74,000 jobs created through hydrogen, and value generated of £320 billion. So looking at hydrogen becoming a key growth engine for the UK, nationally, regionally, and in areas where we need to see renewable new growth in the post-COVID period. So another contextual element to this is that without hydrogen, UK faces significant challenges. I talked about our gas grid a few moments ago. The UK's gas grid supplies 3 times more energy than the electricity grid today. So it is a hugely important national resource, and being able to use that as we move forward towards net zero will represent a really efficient way to support and deliver that transition. On the transport side, our transport sector accounts for over 1/3 of final energy consumption, and electrifying all heating and transport by 2050 is likely to be an unsurmountable challenge. So we're already starting to see hydrogen solutions being deployed and applied. I mentioned the range of projects that are developing on the hydrogen production side. And in terms of some of the other aspects on the hydrogen for heat side, we're seeing extensive trials taking place. Excuse me. Looking at blending hydrogen into the natural gas grid at up to 20%, and then other trials looking at 100%. Also development of hydrogen boilers and looking at the role that they will play going forward. And then in the hydrogen for industry area, both in terms of process, hydrogen for industrial process and for heating. The government's 10-point plan for green recovery, which placed a very strong emphasis on hydrogen as part of that recovery, committed to establishing carbon capture and storage in 2 industrial clusters by the mid-2020s, with an aim for 4 of these by 2030. And I'll revisit that thread later on in the presentation. On the hydrogen for transport side, we've got activity across a range of different modes. We have the the world's first hydrogen aircraft in the UK. We've had a recent announcement of a £300 million investment in the UK's first multimodal hydrogen transport hub, with plans for further development going forward. We have several hydrogen train projects and one of Europe's largest fleets of hydrogen buses. So the hydrogen strategy, we were delighted to see the publication of the UK hydrogen strategy in August. It's a hugely important document in terms of vision, ambition, and the commitment to hydrogen that we need to see going forward. And not only were we pleased to see the focus on the role for hydrogen in net zero, but also the recognition of hydrogen's role in delivering clean growth across the UK, supporting jobs, exports, and economic growth. So hugely important role for hydrogen going forward. There's plenty more to do, as we see everywhere, and I'll talk about that as I go forward. Just to drill down in some aspects of the hydrogen strategy. So one of the most immediate threads there is a £240 million net zero hydrogen fund, which will be launching next year, and the government's currently consulting on. Other areas that are going to be key in the detail of the delivery of the hydrogen strategy, and that we at the UK Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association see as absolutely critical, are the development of business models which will be used to support the scale up of hydrogen production in the short to medium term. And the government has a stated objective of 5 gigawatts hydrogen production capacity by 2030. Within the industry, we see a much scope for much greater ambition there. Our members would like to see and are ready to deliver against a target of 20 gigawatts by 2030. So we see scope to be much more ambitious there, and clearly the business models and the next few years will be key to how we can deliver against that. We're also seeing a commitment within the hydrogen strategy for 4 CCUS clusters by 2030, which again will be key, particularly in terms of getting that industrial decarbonisation developed and accelerating at scale. And the hydrogen strategy also commits to piloting a hydrogen town by 2030 as well. So lots of really interesting elements, a really encouraging ambition and vision. We just now need to get down into the detail to really kickstart that and accelerate that process. So in summary, Low carbon hydrogen is essential to the UK government's net zero ambitions, and we as a trade association sit fully behind that. Investing in low carbon hydrogen today is going to create significant long-term opportunities for the UK. And of course, this means leads to many opportunities for partnerships and overseas collaborations. And both ourselves and the UK government see a role for both blue and green hydrogen, with green as the ultimate solution for 2050, but that twin track approach will be important in the short to medium term to ensure that we can get the scale that we need in the 2020s and 2030s. And the UK can become a significant exporter of low carbon hydrogen and fuel cell solutions. So there's clearly a very strong international element to where we see hydrogen developing in the UK. And again, we are delighted to be part of this International Hydrogen Industry Associations Alliance. And we look forward to working with our international partners over the coming months to accelerate the progress of hydrogen across the world. Thank you very much.
네, 셀리아 그레아베스 대표 및 설립자의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 스페인 수소협회의 하비에르 브레이 산체스 회장의 발표가 있겠습니다.
Much also for inviting the Spanish National Hydrogen Association. Today we are going to talk about hydrogen in Spain, the opportunities we are facing, and how you could share this opportunity in Spain with us. The Spanish National Hydrogen Association was created more or less 20 years ago with the idea of developing in our country hydrogen-related technologies. We wanted to develop projects, technology of course, policies, and we were able to see the opportunity that Spain had with renewable hydrogen. We are proud to say that today the Spanish National Hydrogen Association is a very important body in Spain. We have almost 300 different members, including organizations, public entities, companies, universities, research centers, and so on. And we have representatives from the different parts of the hydrogen value chain. We have partners working on hydrogen production, distribution, transportation, storage, and utilization. And we have companies working from industry to mobility and from energy to the residential sector. We also have members working on services like consultancy, engineering, and so on. So we can say that here in Spain, we have representatives from all the parts of the hydrogen value chain. Why is hydrogen so important in Spain? Because in Spain, we are currently importing 100% of our fossil fuels. We are importing 100% of the coal, the petrol, the natural gas. And on the other hand, we are plenty of renewable sources like sun or wind. Our plan is to install in the next 10 years 59 gigawatt of renewable power and close 14 gigawatt of conventional power. The idea is to have by 2030 3/4 of our electrical power coming from renewable. So 74% of the electrical energy that we are going to use in Spain by 2030 is going to come from renewable sources. But in order to do this, we need to use hydrogen. We need to use hydrogen as a way to manage the renewable energy, and we need to use hydrogen as a way to reach other sectors than the electrical one, for example, mobility or industry. So hydrogen is a key part of our energy strategy. Even more, Spain is going to play a very important role in the renewable hydrogen sector in Europe. By 2030, the Spanish renewable hydrogen is going to have one of the lowest costs in Europe, $2 per kilogram. And this cost is going to be reduced in the following years up to $1 per kilogram. So in Spain, we are going to find one of the cheapest renewable hydrogens in Europe. Moreover, in Europe as a whole, we are going to import hydrogen. So we are going to produce a huge amount of renewable hydrogen in Europe, but we are going to need to import hydrogen, renewable hydrogen, from the north of Africa and from the east of Europe. But Spain is going to be able to be self-sufficient in hydrogen, in renewable hydrogen, and also is going to be able to export hydrogen to Northern Europe. So again, this is a very important opportunity for Spain, and we are working hard on making a reality from this opportunity. This is the reason for which we presented last year in October 2020 our hydrogen roadmap with the idea of promoting this technology in our country. In this roadmap, we have several milestones by 2030. For example, 25% of the industrial hydrogen by 2030 is going to have a renewable origin. We are going to have, by that year, 4 gigawatts of electrolyzers installed in our country, producing renewable hydrogen from renewable power. Moreover, we want to have 600 megawatts of electrolyzers installed by 2024, so in 3 years. We are going to have 150 hydrogen fueling stations by that year, and 2 lines of railways working with renewable hydrogen. And this has a budget of 8.9 billion euro to be invested in the next 10 years. Currently, the government of Spain has announced to invest the first 1.5 billion in the next 3 years. So I have to say that in Spain, we have a roadmap, and also we have a budget to develop that roadmap. Which opportunities are we facing in Spain? The first one, we are going to produce a huge amount of renewable hydrogen, enough to be self-sufficient, enough to move our industry, our transportation, our energy, and our residential sectors, but also in order to be able to export renewable hydrogen to Northern Europe. This hydrogen, remember, is going to be one of the most cheap hydrogen in Europe. Second, we are going to be an important hub for hydrogen in the next decade. Remember that in Europe, we are going to import renewable hydrogen from North of Africa. This hydrogen from North of Africa is going to enter in Europe through Spain. So Spain is going to produce and is going to import renewable hydrogen, and is going to export and distribute this hydrogen to the Northern Europe. We are becoming a very important hub for renewable hydrogen. And third, we are going to export not only hydrogen, but also equipment. Hydrogen production plants and electrolyzers manufactured, developed here in Spain, are going to be exported to other countries in Europe and even to the north of Africa. But of course, we have also some gaps between the opportunities and the reality of our country. First, we still have a lot of technology which is in the universities and the research centers. We need to move this technology from the nest to the industry, which is going to develop this technology as a market. Second, yes, we have the opportunity to export equipment and hydrogen production plants, but we still need to create the industry enough to manufacture this equipment. And third, of course, we are going to produce a huge amount of renewable hydrogen at a very low cost, and we are going to export this renewable hydrogen to the north of Europe, but we still need to develop these large hydrogen production facilities, these 4 gigawatts of electrolyzers by 2030, and we still need to connect them with renewable energy power. So the capabilities to produce renewable hydrogen still have to be developed. In any case, in Spain, we have one of the most important strategies for hydrogen in Europe, and we do have a budget allocated in order to develop this strategy. We have detected in Spain, as well as in Europe, the opportunity for investment in hydrogen-related business in all of the areas related with hydrogen production, transportation, of course, utilization. We can see opportunities for countries like Korea for investment and cooperation. In Spain, we have a lot of technology and companies working on clean hydrogen production. As mentioned, we plan to export hydrogen and also hydrogen production facilities. On the other hand, we in Spain don't have so many industry-related hydrogen utilization. For example, fuel cells, engines and turbines, hydrogen refilling stations, or hydrogen vehicles. And we know that, for example, in the case of Korea, there is a lot of strength in those areas. So we can see a cooperation between both countries, exporting technology and importing technology at the same time. But of course, we have mentioned that we are facing a lot of very interesting projects regarding hydrogen production utilization in our country. Foreign companies are more than welcome to come to Spain and develop here projects with us, with the idea of making a very important, to play a very important role in our country in renewable hydrogen. So again, you are more than welcome to invest in Spain or to come to Spain. Helping Spanish companies to move to other countries like Korea will be also very interesting for us. In any case, please count with the Spanish National Hydrogen Association. We can be your partner. If you want to come to Spain or you are looking for a Spanish technology in order to invest or in order to move this technology to your countries. Thank you very much for this opportunity and please count on us.
네, 하비에르 브레이 산체스 회장의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 중국 국제수소연료전지협회의 왕주 사무총장의 발표를 이어서 듣도록 하겠습니다.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be here to introduce the development and the future trend of Chinese FCV industry. Let us start with the hydrogen supporting policies. Hydrogen has been considered a national strategy for long-term low-carbon development, not only because it will be used for renewable energy, but also it will be used for energy storage in the future. It is projected that more than 10% energy supply will be hydrogen by 2050, according to a study in China. What's more, hydrogen will play an important role to realize carbon neutrality by 2060 in China. As of July this year, many supporting policies have been released in terms of hydrogen technologies of production, delivery, and hydrogen refueling stations. Beginning this year, the 14th five-year plan and long-term objectives by 2035 also emphasize the importance of hydrogen industry as one of the 6 most potential industries. More than 30 city governments are also encouraging hydrogen technology development. They have released related policies and plans to support hydrogen in transportation, buildings, industry, and other sectors. Chinese government are adopting a strategy of reward instead of subsidy to reward the selected city clusters. It is a new strategy to promote FCV technology breakthrough and large-scale demonstration. Beijing, Shanghai, and Foshan are the first 3 cities chosen to lead demonstration city clusters. Because they have strong FCV and hydrogen industry foundations, supply chains, resources, etc. It is a 4-year demonstration program. The rewards will set detailed technical requirements. For example, each FCV demonstration mileage is more than 30,000 kilometers. Minimum numbers of main FCV components. Also about hydrogen price, and hydrogen must be from low carbon production. The city clusters can get rewards only after these criteria can be reached. The cap for each city cluster is 1.7 billion yuan. It is believed that stocks of FCV will be increased in the coming years, and its development curve is much similar to battery vehicles in 2010. Then I would like to talk about the FCV market. The development of the FCV industry is still at a primary stage. By the end of 2020, China has 7,300 FCVs with cumulative mileage surpassing 100 million kilometers. The main manufacturers of passenger cars used to be SAIC, whose technology improvement is fast, but commercialization is relatively slow. Now, more and more local different car manufacturers like Guangzhou Automobile Group, FAW, Beijing Automotive, etc. have their own cars. As more and more car manufacturers are speeding up FCV technology research, more FCVs will be launched into market soon. So far, FCV commercial vehicles, especially buses and logistics trucks, are dominating the market. The total stocks of FCV commercial vehicles are more than 7,000, and its stock will be increased greatly because of the rewards policy released this year. The next step is to improve economy and the durability of FCV commercial vehicles. What's more, improvements on heavy-duty applications will also be a central work for us. Heavy-duty applications are a key segment with high demonstration activities for breakthrough. In the FCV industry, buses used to take up most percentage, while trucks were about 30% in 2019 and 2020. However, in 2021, this year, the growth of trucks exceeded growth of buses, reaching about 40%. So the requirement and production of heavy-duty FCVs is in a rising trend. As we agree that heavy-duty vehicles will be in a high priority for future long-range transportation instead of battery vehicles. Although fuel cell materials, components, stacks, and systems are in the stage of commercialization, FCV stacks and systems both qualify for the assembly requirement already and are developed to attain greater power and power density. So our next step on commercialization is to improve the economy and the reliability of fuel cell. Then let's move to FCV Onboard Systems, another important component for the industry. The onboard hydrogen storage system in China is mainly 350 bars and 700 bars Type 3. As standards are getting developed, we are in the trend of moving to 700 bars Type 4 tanks. Technology of liquid hydrogen is also on a right track. 3 national standards for liquid hydrogen have been released, and more product research, including testing, are in progress. China is doing well in the construction of hydrogen refueling stations, even it is still behind FCV development. The total numbers was about 120 stations in 2020. So we are at the world's second place. More stations are under construction this year, but the high cost has already been our biggest problem. So it is still a big concern for us. Good news I want to share with you is that Sinopec, the biggest soy company in China, announces to be the biggest hydrogen company and will build 1,000 hydrogen refueling stations by 2025. Last year, in September, China-SAE has released technical requirement of saving and new energy vehicles Vision 2, which sets goals of specifications of different cars, types from 2020 to 2035, including fuel, economy, cost, power density, etc. The numbers of FCVs on the road could reach 1 million by 2035, and hydrogen refueling stations will be about 5,000 stations. As governments start to discover the roles of hydrogen in environment, industry, and market, the increased support from them on research and development of FCV drives it to a fast growth period. Since hydrogen was considered a new energy source, series of policy will be released to support FCV multiple applications. We are having a bright future because FCV market is growing fast with more demonstration and promotion involved. Finally, I'm proud to introduce the International Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association, which is initiated by Toyota, SAIC, Daimler, and Shell, many international companies. Our association sets up an international platform for members to promote the development of CV through communication, standards developing, policy making. There are already 18 members from many countries, which cover areas of vehicles, FCVs, components, energy, industry, and hydrogen infrastructure. With contribution from everyone, we hope to expand FCV market, enhance hydrogen technology, and help the globe to reach target of emission peak and carbon neutrality. Thanks for your time of listening. Let's work together to embrace a greener earth. Finally, I wish GHIAA Forum a success. Thank you.
왕주 사무총장의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 네덜란드 수소 및 연료전지 협회의 윌리엄 반 니커크 회장의 발표 영상을 시청하겠습니다.
Dear hydrogen community members, it's my pleasure to introduce the Netherlands Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association to you. And by myself, my name is William van Niekerk. I'm the chairman of the Netherlands Society for Hydrogen and Fuel Cells. And it's a nice opportunity to outline what we are doing in the Netherlands on hydrogen and fuel cells for this event. And therefore, I would like to first introduce you to the association as it is in the Netherlands. It was established in 2002, July 2002, based on the technology that was being delivered by a few companies, especially from the then AXO companies. They noticed the importance of hydrogen already, and a few startups started to build a hydrogen ecosystem in the Netherlands, whereas the Netherlands holds some second position in the hydrogen production in Europe at the moment. We still see that the number of companies is increasing, and the number of companies that are member of our association can be divided in several categories. In the Netherlands, we have companies that are very active in fuels and molecules, if I could add. Shell, for instance, Air Liquide, Air Products and the like. But also we have a lot of companies that build technology for hydrogen and fuel cells. Companies like Netstek, like Javier, and also we have a lot of companies that are already focusing on the application of hydrogen even to consumer levels. Now all of these companies together and organizations that are working in the field of knowledge development have an ambition to build a better and more sustainable economy in the Netherlands. So the Netherlands Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association is statutory focusing on making society more sustainable with the application of hydrogen and fuel cell technology. And this ambition, of course, could be a part of an international ambition. And as our association endeavors to a more sustainable society, we also see that there's a huge demand for increased knowledge to do so. And therefore, knowledge is pivotal in our association. Knowledge development, knowledge I would say sharing, dispense, also the celebration of knowledge, and of course the stocking or piling or filing of knowledge in every possible form. And I hope that you can understand the importance for that for our Dutch community as well as the international community. Knowledge is key in collaboration, as it is in the international collaboration we are building together. And in the Netherlands, we see that the knowledge application in our society is mainly focused on three fields. First of all, there's the field of the built environment. We've seen in the Netherlands already autonomous houses or self-supporting houses based on hydrogen technology. But we also see that, for instance, grid operators and utilities are seeing the potential of hydrogen in existing gas grids. You may know that the Netherlands has a very detailed, extensive gas grid as of the 1950s already, that supports virtually all of the built environment, and we see large potential of transporting hydrogen through that. The second application in the Netherlands is, of course, the industry. And there's a huge industrial cluster in the Netherlands, and hydrogen, as you may know, is to be used in many industrial areas. But we also see that hydrogen is now connecting industrial areas, and that hydrogen transport becomes more prominent for storage as well as for application, as well as for other application at domestic level even. The third application is, of course, mobility. We see hydrogen and fuel cells applied in the Netherlands in the mobility sector. At the moment, we stand at approaching 20 hydrogen filling points for cars, accessible for passenger cars. We also see that there are a huge number of buses at the Dutch roads on hydrogen. We have seen applications in trains, and we have seen a governmental incentive for green shipping, in which our association also takes part. Of course, all of these projects are scale-up projects. You may well understand that scaling up is an issue of size and of money and of infrastructure, and therefore we need an extensive infrastructure to be increased. And that's also a knowledge infrastructure, but also, of course, an infrastructure for educational purposes and research and development. We need a further collaboration in every possible field to reduce the cost of hydrogen production and application, and knowledge is indeed another key factor to address to achieve this scale-up. We've seen that the COVID crisis has made it hard for some industries, but we have done research together with an Rotterdam School of Economics students who did a large interview session with various stakeholders in the field. And we learned from that that hydrogen is more or less COVID resistant, which is very good, of course, despite that this meeting is virtual and not in person. And I'm talking to you to camera and not to you in person. And unfortunately, I cannot answer your question, but I really would like to invite you to go to www.nwba.nl, where you will find our website and our English section as well. Coming back to our association, it has grown during our COVID crisis, and we've also seen new members of the association, and we grow almost every month. We are now at over 50 members in our association, and our association, as I mentioned, holds various partners. They also include engineering consultants and other parties that may be interesting for the other viewers to this webcast. I would therefore indeed invite you to go to our website, on which you can see all of our members shown. And we've also built up a collaboration with the Netherlands Technology Platform, which showcases several applications that the Dutch members of our society bring. And that helps you further understanding what kind of technology the Netherlands can share. I may also add that the Netherlands, as a part of the European Union, is closely following the EU ambition on extensive growth of hydrogen production and application in the Netherlands. And personally, I feel that with all the green hydrogen to be produced at a 30 gigawatt scale anytime soon, we will also see lots and lots of new application in that field. And that is indeed a very interesting opportunity for those of you who are interested in how the energy grid is used, and of course also on the fuel cell side. So not only on the electrolyzer side, but on the fuel cell side, there will be new applications, probably small applications, some bigger, and the Netherlands are very keen to find new applications as such. Being in the EU, the Netherlands has also prepared a Netherlands or Dutch hydrogen program. It's called the NWP, the Netherlands Waterstof, which is Dutch for hydrogen program. And on that, we've seen ambitions for mobility written down in KPIs, mobility ambitions for industry, ambitions for the production industry, for human capital, for international collaboration. And this can also be found through the website of the NWBA. So you can learn more about the Dutch ambitions as a whole. Our society appreciates collaboration, not only with you today, as we've signed this agreement, but we also work together with other national associations as well as companies. And we also work together with private event organizers. And as we see it in the Netherlands, either through virtual or through live events, up to 150 people take a real interest. And the most pressing subject that brings people to these events at the moment, I can tell you, is mobility. So like in Korea, like in Japan, like in other countries, like in Germany, well, probably in all the countries that are participating in the GHIAA, we will see that mobility is really finding lots of application. In the Netherlands, this is also supported by tax incentives. So car manufacturers from Korea, as well as from Japan, have a good opening on the Dutch market. And I would invite other companies also to look for opportunities and collectively bring down the cost of the hydrogen system, the ecosystem in the Netherlands. But also, we see that a lot of Dutch manufacturers bring their products to the international market. All across the globe, you can see Dutch technology being applied in new prospective technologies. We've seen over the last year that technology prices for systems as a whole go down. You will see that, for instance, tubes, connections, basically all infrastructure elements may have a rise in price of original feedstock or raw materials, but at the same time, their OPEX more or less goes down due to the better design, better systems that are being developed. I applaud this development, and I would applaud that international collaboration leads to further reduction of cost of system, because that would increase the impact of the hydrogen economy as a whole. Impact is what it is all about, also in this collaboration, and therefore I would like to thank the organization to bring us together and to work with us together for the next 3 years. And I applaud H2 Korea to setting up this initiative. And I would very much like to engage with you in any near future soon. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in person anytime soon. See you in the Netherlands or elsewhere. Thank you very much on behalf of the Netherlands Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association. Thank you.
네, 윌리엄 반 니커크 회장의 발표 잘 들었습니다. 다음은 노르웨이 수소 포럼의 이네베그 텔레스 윌햄슨 사무총장의 발표가 있겠습니다.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ingrid Tenles Wilhelmsen, and I am the Secretary General of the Norwegian Hydrogen Forum. We highly welcome the initiative from Hydrogen Korea to form a global hydrogen industrial association alliance. I'm grateful for getting this opportunity to speak to you all today, and I'm happy to give an introduction to the Norwegian hydrogen landscape. Norwegian Hydrogen Forum is a national members association, and we were founded in 1996. So we are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. These are our current members, and they represent the entire hydrogen value chain. We have gained more than 30 new members over the past year. So there is no doubt that the interest in hydrogen is increasing rapidly in Norway. And from our point, we see some trends. Firstly, that the huge established companies are turning their eyes to hydrogen. For example, Equinor, Statkraft, Aker, and Yara. And secondly, the companies that has been in the hydrogen game for a while, they are increasing. For instance, Nel, Hexagon, and Umeå. And third, we see an increasing number of new startups businesses, and both small and medium-sized enterprises. And there are also very many subcontractors to the oil and gas industry, which now are targeting the hydrogen market. And last but not least, we registered a different consortia being formed where several companies join forces and to establish good business case that will take care of the entire value chain from production to distribution and to the end customer. In Norwegian Hydrogen Forum, we recognize that hydrogen initiatives are taken locally, and we have therefore established a country governors network. The purpose is to share knowledge, exchange the regional plans, and coordinate our public procurement processes. June last year, the Norwegian Hydrogen presented their first hydrogen strategy. And the strategy mainly focused on increased funding for hydrogen-related technologies and supporting research and development and the demonstration of hydrogen. Further on to developing technology for capture, transport of storage of CO2, including a solution for a full-scale CCS plant in Norway called Longship. And Longship will receive state aid at the estimated amount of 16.8 billion Norwegian kroners. So it's a huge and significant project. However, the response from the industry towards this strategy was that they wanted a more ambitious and even more target-oriented strategy for both green and blue hydrogen. So after a close dialogue between the industry and the authorities, the government announced last fall that they would follow up the hydrogen strategy by establishing a hydrogen roadmap. So the Prime Minister and the Minister of Petroleum and Energy presented a Norwegian roadmap on June 11th this summer. And the roadmap is a part of a white paper called Value Creation from Norwegian Energy Resources. And the white paper states that Norway's position as an energy nation will be further developed through new initiatives, and this is very good, such as hydrogen. And they also say offshore wind, strengthening of the power grid, and low emission oil and gas sector. So let's have a closer look at the hydrogen roadmap. Because the Norwegian government has the following plan for 2025 to facilitate the establishment of 5 hydrogen hubs in the area of maritime transportation with the opportunity to development for land transport. And furthermore, to strive for the establishment of 1 or 2 industrial projects with associated production facilities. and last 5 to 10 pilot projects for development and demonstration of new and more cost-effective hydrogen solutions and technologies. And for the 2030, they aim that for a network of geographically dispersed and demand-based hydrogen hubs in line with the supply of both vessels and vehicles, and that hydrogen vessels are a competitive and safe alternative for shipping in Norway waters and sea shipping areas. Furthermore, to realization of full-scale hydrogen projects in the industry, and to use that the use of hydrogen is a competitive alternative to fossil energy. And I think this is a very important political area, and the Norwegian government has decided to increase the CO2 tax at a very high level. So hopefully the CO2 tax will also contribute to make this goal for 2030 happen. And as you see on the last pointer, they also want to have export of both hydrogen and hydrogen technologies. So these are our current political goals. So let's have a look at what's going on in the industry. Because Norway is a small country, especially in respect to population. However, we are in a good position to take part in building a hydrogen economy. We have proud tradition, and Hydro started with industrial scale green hydrogen production at Rjukan back in 1929. And we have significant energy resources, both natural gas and renewable energy, with an energy self-sufficient rate of 800%. And we also have strong research and development actors, technology suppliers, and consulting and financial environments. And we also have an increasing political focus. And we have an election for parliament just in a few days. And it is with great pleasure that we register that the hydrogen now is clearly on the political agenda. There is a high number of projects underway throughout the whole country in Norway. And there are several initiatives to use hydrogen in the maritime transport. For instance, high-speed passenger boats, supply ships, cruise vessels, container ships, and service vessels for the substantial Norwegian fish industry. And in the upright corner, you see Hydra, the first hydrogen ferry that has recently set afloat and will be powered by liquid hydrogen from this winter. And there are also projects related to hydrogen and ammonia in the industry. In the top left corner, you see a picture from Yara's facility. And Yara has, together with Aker and Statkraft, announced the plans to use green hydrogen in their ammonia plant with the potential to cut 800 tons of CO2 every year. And Statkraft has, together with Noel and Celsa, planning for an electrolyzer plant up to 50 megawatts to produce green steel and developing a hydrogen hub in Mo. It should be mentioned that more than 50% of all our new passenger registrations cars in 2020 was fully battery electric. However, for heavy duty transport and long distances buses, the battery solutions are not sufficient. So we need hydrogen to decarbonize this segment. And there are also multiple initiatives in land transport. For instance, as you see on the right, the ASKO is currently testing for delivery trucks in Trondheim. And there are 4 hydrogen stations operational in Norway at this moment. And Everfuel just recently launched their plans for a hydrogen refueling station network. And their ambition is to establish 15 refueling sites to be operational in the south of Norway by the end of 2023. And also Hynia have plans to roll out 30 stations in and around the largest cities in Norway and the Northern Europe in the coming years. So a lot of exciting things is going on in Norway, and I'm very honored and pleased to sign the letter of intent together with all of you. And the Norwegian Hydrogen Forum look forward to future cooperation. Thank you very much for your attention.
네, 이네베그 텔레스 윌햄슨 사무총장의 발표까지 들으셨습니다. 다음으로는 칠레 수소협회의 한스 쿨렌캄페 대표의 발표가 있겠습니다.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Hans Kuhlenkamp. I'm the co-founder and the current president of the Chilean Hydrogen Association. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you for the launch of the Global Hydrogen Industrial Association Alliance. Let me share with you a couple of insights of what's going on in Chile. H2Chile is the Chilean Hydrogen Association, founded in 2018 as a non-profit industrial association. The objective is to accelerate the energy transition by promoting hydrogen and its use as an energy vector in industrial, commercial, residential, and mobility applications. We intend to position Chile as one of the leading countries in the production and exportation of green hydrogen. Our members come from the private, public, and academic sectors, and today we are close to 45 professional members and more or less 50 leading companies. Today, our associates can cover the entire green hydrogen value chain. In fact, in this slide, you can see every company that today is a member of H2Chile, from international utility companies, oil and gas companies, distribution of hydrogen, technology companies, mining companies, maritime companies, service providers, and so on. Today, we also have 6 work streams. Work stream number 1 is where we work to stimulate the demand. We need to scale up our industry and we need to aggregate off-takers. Financing is where we work to facilitate the availability of financial resources for green hydrogen projects in Chile. Public policy and regulation is where we work with the Ministry of Energy to facilitate the creation of the instrument that will generate hydrogen and the business models behind that. Number four, very important, it's human capital development. It's where we work as an association to teach and create know-how at every level, in high schools, in universities, for journalists, for engineers, for technicians, so more people can be aware of the technologies related to hydrogen, its use, and where should we focus. Number 5, it's where we work in the constructions of national and international alliances, like the one that we are sharing today with you. It's incredibly important that we can cooperate globally for those important matters that we will face in parallel. We need to avoid to reinvent the wheel. 6 is the development of H2Chile internally, is to consolidate our association and be sustainable in the future. Let's talk about Chile now. Why hydrogen in Chile? Well, according to the Bloomberg Climate Scope report, Chile is one of the most important countries to invest in renewable energy. In fact, it was ranked first in the report in 2018, second in 2019, and we are again first in 2020, just above India, Brazil, Jordan, and mainland China. The reason behind this first rank is our fundamentals, our experience, and the most important, the opportunities behind the country. For more information, you can go to Global Climate Scope and learn why Chile is an incredibly interesting country to invest in renewable energy. Second, because our geography is quite unique. With more or less 4,000 kilometer length, we have a renewable potential of more or less 1,800 gigawatts, according to the last numbers of the Ministry of Energy. 1,300 more or less is a combination of solar photovoltaics and solar CSP. The rest, more or less 300, comes from wind in the southern Patagonia, and more or less 15 gigawatts is our potential on hydro. This is why renewable installed capacity has been growingly every year, up to the figure of today, more or less 7.4 gigawatts of renewable capacity, where wind and solar photovoltaic are the dominant technology in the country. Behind this number, there are, of course, companies investing. And according to the Ministry of Energy, we have today an investment portfolio of close to $20 billion in renewable projects, either under development, under construction, or under environmental permitting, plus $4.5 billion in expansion of transmission lines, something which is incredibly important for a country like Chile, where the solar energy is in the north and the population is in the center. These are the ingredients which will facilitate the construction of a hydrogen industry. And that's why the government launched the National Hydrogen Strategy. Chile launched his hydrogen national strategy at the end of 2020, becoming one of the first Latin American countries to do so. Key insights of our national hydrogen strategy is that we are aiming at an installed capacity of 5 gigawatts of electrolysis under development or operation for year 2025 and 25 gigawatts for year 2030. Also, we are aiming at producing one of the cheapest green hydrogens on the planet. To do so, we are working with the public sector for the promotion of national and international demand, which means scaling up that project, scaling up the technology, and the creation of regulation and standards necessary for the investors to take decisions. You might agree with me that the statement of producing the cheapest green hydrogen on the planet, promoted by the same country that want to produce it, might be a bit too subjective. Let's check what others are saying. For example, the International Energy Agency, in his report toward 2030, clearly defines the geography where Chile is based as a very interesting location to produce renewable hydrogen. Same for the Hydrogen Council. In his last report, showed that Chile could be at the bottom of hydrogen production. It doesn't matter which report we choose, we always are going to find that the renewable potential of Chile is there to produce one of the cheapest renewable hydrogens of the globe. In fact, in this last report by the International Energy Agency, we can clearly see that the northern part of Chile, the southern part of Peru, the northern part of Argentina, the southern part of Bolivia, certain parts of Mexico, and the northern west part of Brazil are also going to be in fact, this new report by the International Energy Agency shows the same. Towards 2050, the geographies of the northern part of Chile, the southern part of Peru, the northern part of Argentina, and the southern part of Bolivia are going to share incredibly good potential for the production of renewable hydrogen. With all this potential, we might ask ourselves, where are the projects? Let us come back to the map. To the left, you have the northern part of Chile, dominated by his solar potential. To the right, you have the southern Patagonia, dominated by one of the strongest winds in the planet. This is how Chile looks divided by his geopolitical regions. And let me now show you some of the ongoing hydrogen projects currently in Chile. We have today big-scale projects aiming at the production of renewable ammonia in the northern part of Chile, like, for example, the project of AES or the project of NG and NX. We have, for example, one of the first big-scale hydrogen. We have big-scale hydrogen projects aiming at the production of renewable ammonia, for example, in the north of Chile, being developed by AES, NG, or NX. We have also some big-scale ammonia projects being developed in the southern Patagonia by, for example, Austria Energy and Ecowind. We have also the project which is called HIF, from Highly Innovative Fuels, a project being developed by the Chilean AME, the Italian Enel, and the German Siemens Energy and Porsche. for the creation of renewable gasoline and renewable kerosene. We have also some middle-scale projects for decarbonizing the center of Chile, which is also where most of the industry is based. Here we have a project that is aiming at the production of hydrogen for a green steel industry. And we have also some first mobility projects, like the decarbonization of logistics centers. Here we have an example of ENGIE and Walmart, and here we have an example of Anglo American in one of their operations in Central Chile. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we inaugurated the first hydrogen refueling station for mobility application in a mining environment. This is an outdoor forklift, which is going to be operated by Anglo American in one of its operations in Central Chile. Finally, the projects are arriving to Chile, and we are extremely happy to keep you posted on more news. Please go to www.h2chile.com for anything you would like to know more. Thank you very much.
네, 한스 쿨렌캄페 대표의 발표까지 들으셨습니다. 마지막은 독일 수소 및 연료전지 협회의 베르너 디왈트 회장의 발표가 이어지겠습니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome you to the Global Hydrogen Industry Association Alliance Forum. The forum comes at just the right time. The global impact of climate change is increasing at an alarming rate, and it is becoming clear that the global society has no more time to lose. Only if we act now and stop greenhouse gas emissions will we be able to leave our children a safe and livable world. But climate protection must not and need not lead to reduction of prosperity and economic growth. The global energy transition offers enormous economic opportunities for business. It is essential, however, that the economic nations of this world jointly master the challenge of the industrial revolution of the next century that lie ahead of us. Only in this way will humanity succeed in implementing the necessary change quickly and efficiently in a social, just, reliable manner. Renewable energy will increasingly come into focus as a source of energy in the coming years. At the same time, however, energy supply security must continue to be guaranteed and optimized in many countries of the world. Green hydrogen will become one of the most important energy sources in this context. Green hydrogen is therefore justifiably an integral part of the public debate. The relation that the 2030 climate targets and even more the 2050 targets cannot be achieved directly with renewable energy electricity alone has now matured among all stakeholders. Without easily storable and transportable hydrogen generated with renewable electricity, climate neutrality in 2050 cannot be achieved. It is therefore obvious to consistently initiate the time of the green hydrogen market economic. With the German national hydrogen strategy, the current German government has certainly taken a commendable and important step in the right direction. But now the new federal government faces the challenge of creating the regulatory framework for prosperous hydrogen market economy in a determined and consistent manner over the next 4 years. The next federal government literally has it in its hands whether or not Germany can take the lead in the future hydrogen industry and economy. Ultimately, we are talking about an annual global market trade potential of more than 2,000 billion euros, with an investment volume of more than 6,000 billion euros on annual turnover in the mechanical and plant engineering of 300 billion euros. This is equivalent to the current annual sales of the entire German mechanical energy sector. Probably enough reasons to give sufficient space in the new coalition agreement for the development of the German hydrogen market and economy. But I think this is a guilty for all governments around the world. A large number of experts assume that Germany alone will have minimum demand of green hydrogen of 700 terawatt hours by 2035. and 2,000 terawatt-hours for the European Union for a sustainable economic and supply secure energy economy. To meet this demand, in addition to the urgent development of domestic production capacity of at least 10 gigawatt by 2030 and at least 40 gigawatt by 2045, the importance of the least 600 terawatt-hours of green hydrogen is required for the Germany. Energy imports will thus continue to play a role in the future, not only the reasons of renewable energy supply security, but also for reasons of geopolitical stability. The best example is in the current negotiations with Ukraine, but also the developments in North and West Africa show that an economic stabilization of this reason is in interest of the European Union. Green hydrogen has the potential to give an economic trade value to the abundance of land, sun, and wind in these regions. The advantage of these regions, however, is not only the potential of low-cost production of green hydrogen, but the possibility of cheap and safe transport of hydrogen via pipelines to Europe and Germany. At the same time, important renewable energy via pipelines to Europe automatically mean integration of our Eastern and Southern European member states into the European energy supply. Bulgaria, Greece, Italy, Portugal, or Spain, for example, can also use the pipes to feed in the green hydrogen production in the countries. Thus, as with the idea of coal and steel community, green hydrogen in particular opens up the opportunity to act as a flywheel for the economic reconstruction and community understanding of the European Union, but also for corporations. For the short-term establishment of the first economically viable energy partnerships, German Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association, in cooperation with the Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, has developed the innovative funding instrument H2 Global. The H2 Global instrument is the first funding program to offer a third market-based demand for green hydrogen. The concept is to bring supply and demand together via a double auction mechanism. On the supply side, long-term purchase contracts are to be concluded, and the demand side, short-term resale contracts. The German Federal Minister of Economic and Technology is providing 900 million euros to compensate for the existing difference between supply and demand price. Thanks to secured offtake contracts, this will create supply and demand market for zero-emission hydrogen-based PTX products for the first time, enabling private investment in corresponding generation, transport, and application infrastructure to be realized in Germany and abroad. The German Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association is presented by the CEO Werner Diewald and the board of the trustees of the H2 Global Foundation, which was established on June 14th. German Hydrogen Association will thus continue to contribute its expertise, which is already demonstrated in the development of the H2 Global concept to its implementation. Overall, it can only be started that the global climate targets will be present as the major challenge and demand of the largest industrial revolution processes. But this is also associated with what is currently on the greatest economic opportunities for Germany and the European Union or other strong industrial countries around the world. This must not now be sized in a consistent and ambitious manner. For this to succeed, however, the economic nations of this world must work together in a trustworthy and reliable manner. Today's forum is an important step in the right direction. Together with our current and future partners, the German Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association would like to contribute to achieve climate neutrality as quickly as possible in line with a strong, social, just global economic system. We wish you further interesting and exciting presentation. Thank you for your attention.
네, 베르너 디왈트 회장의 발표까지 잘 들었습니다. 이것으로 전체 발표 세션을 마치도록 하겠습니다. 행사의 마지막은 문제도 회장님의 폐회사로 장식하겠습니다. 문제도 회장님께서는 단상으로 자리해 주시기 바랍니다.
여러분 장시간 수고 많이 하셨습니다. 오늘 행사에 함께해 주신 하이드로젠 유럽 요르고 차치마르카키 대표님, 미국 연료전지 수소에너지협회 모리비 마코위츠 대표님, 캐나다 수소연료전지협회 마크 커버 대표님, 호주 수소위원회 피오나 시몬 대표님, 싱가포르 수소연료전지협회 노엘 친 대표님, 영국 수소협회 대표이자 설립자이신 셀리아 그레아베스님, 스페인 수소협회의 하비에르 브레이 산체스 회장님, 중국 국제수소연료전지협회의 왕주 사무차장님, 네덜란드 수소연료전지협회의 윌리엄 반 니커크 회장님, 노르웨이 수소포럼 이네베그 텔레스 윌헬슴 사무총장님, 프랑스 수소연료전지협회 필립 부키 대표님, 칠레 수소협회의 한스 클렌캄페 대표님, 독일 수소연료전지협회 베르너 디왈트 회장님, 그리고 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 출범에 합의한 13개 기관의 임직원 여러분, 저는 각국의 수소경제를 이끌고 계신 여러분과 함께 고민을 나누고 해결 방안을 모색할 수 있게 되어서 영광이며 진심으로 기쁘게 생각합니다. 오늘 포럼을 통해서 우리는 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스의 공식 출범을 확인하는 의향서에 체결하게 되었습니다. 코로나 바이러스 확산세로 인해서 한자리에 모여 함께 하지는 못했지만 앞으로 1년여 시간 동안 우리는 이 협의체가 국제수소사회와 각국 수소산업을 활성화하는 데 도움을 주기 위해 향후 어떤 활동에 주력해 나갈 건지 구체화해가는 작업을 할 것입니다. H2코리아는 그간 한국의 수소경제 활성화를 위해서 민간의 가교 역할을 했던 경험, 그리고 각국 수소산업 활성화의 주역인 14개 기관의 노하우를 빌어서 이제 협력의 무대를 세계로 넓혀 나가고자 합니다. H2코리아와 GHIAA에 참여하는 모든 기관들은 글로벌 수소경제로의 도약을 위해서 산업 차원에서 실질적 협력을 강화하는 것이 본 협의체 활동의 본질이라고 생각합니다. 저는 임시 사무국지를 위임받은 H2코리아의 회장으로서 본 협의체의 공식 발족과 국제사회에서의 역할을 다할 수 있도록 지원을 아끼지 않을 것입니다. 존경하는 각국의 뇌 기빈 여러분, 귀한 시간을 내셔 본 행사에 참여해 주신 여러분들께 감사드리며 국제 수소 산업협회 얼라이언스의 앞으로 글로벌 수소경제 실현을 앞당기기 위해서 모두 함께 적극 노력하겠습니다. 이상으로 오늘 포럼을 마치겠습니다. 함께해 주신 모든 분들께 감사드립니다. 돌아가시는 길 평안하게 잘 가시기 바랍니다. 대단히 고맙습니다.
네, 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 문제도 회장님, 폐회사 감사합니다. 네, 이제 폐회사를 끝으로 국제수소산업협회 얼라이언스 포럼을 모두 마치겠습니다. 함께 해주신 모든 분들께 다시 한번 감사의 말씀 전합니다. 고맙습니다. 안녕히 돌아가십시오.